In a vast grassland at the foot of the mountain, countless slimes shimmered white beneath the sunlight. Two adventurers were hiding beside a large tree in the distance. The more experienced one cautioned his companion to be extremely careful, because if they let the creatures escape, all their efforts would be for nothing. No sooner had he spoken than he saw someone dash ahead. "What?" the adventurer called out to the young man approaching the slimes. "Please wait a moment." The young man struck once, splitting a slime in two. By himself, he swept through the slimes in the area. Sticky fluid from the slimes splattered everywhere. Yakido finished them off with a dazzlingly sharp slash. His eyes flashed in icy silver blue. Notification: player Yakido has successfully obtained S-rank items, including silver slime armor, silver slime gauntlets, and silver slime boots. Yakido glanced behind him, where the dropped items lay glittering in the sunlight. The other adventurers exclaimed in astonishment. He killed them all in one strike, and every hit was critical. And weren't all those drops ultra-rare S-rank items? They marveled at such unimaginable luck. Meanwhile, Yakido examined the item list in his system. S-rank. S-rank? I can't believe my eyes. Every single one of these is a top-tier S-rank treasure. He smiled faintly. This can't possibly be real. In just one day, I'm making up for an entire lifetime of suffering and humiliation. Yakido recalled his miserable previous life. In the end, he had died as a lowly bronze-rank adventurer. Yakido had lived to the age of 85. In the first level of the Tokyo dungeon, surrounded by young adventurers, the old Yakido hobbled along with his back bent, leaning on his sword. Someone held up a phone screen showing an image. "Look, those hideous monsters are charging this way. The outside world has long since been completely occupied and destroyed." Everyone panicked. "We have to escape deeper into the dungeon," someone said despairingly. "It's useless. Those monsters will soon flood up from the lower floors." A kind young man patted Yakido on the shoulder. "Hey, old man, you need to run too. Is this really the time to leisurely hunt harmless slimes?" Yakido silently brushed away the hand on his shoulder. Yakido headed toward the slimes. The young man tried to stop him again. "Old man." Other adventurers ran past them. "Forget that senile old fool. He's completely lost his mind. He's just a useless old man whose stats will never increase." An adventurer ran by and deliberately shoved Yakido to the ground. "Get out of my way. Those lowly slimes. And that frail old man, too." Yakido sat on the grass, his sword lying beside his hand. Grasping the hilt of his sword, Yakido wondered inwardly, how many decades has it been since that day? He pushed himself up with his sword and continued walking. Ever since the adventurer profession had first come into existence, Yakido looked toward the adventurer who had rushed at a slime earlier. Status systems were familiar to everyone, but each person's growth pattern was entirely different. He was so enthusiastic because killing monsters raised an adventurer's level. Once their level increased, their stats grew as well. Yakido knew that adventurers could sometimes even gain new magic and combat skills. That was perfectly normal for everyone else, but not for Yakido. He could not understand why cruel fate had chosen him alone for such torment. His displayed level was 98, yet all his stats remained below 5. Yakido could not accept it. He remembered his youth, always worked harder and tried more desperately than anyone else in the world. After endlessly hunting only the weakest, lowest-ranked monsters, I finally reached level 98. With his aged body, Yakido struggled to cut down a slime. He was the only one forced to bear such a cruel fate. Soon, only pools of slime remained around him, while the dim sunset made the scene even more sorrowful. Yakido lowered his sword. He knew the maximum level was 99. Just one more level, and I'll reach the goal. Once I officially attained the highest level, all the sacrifices and suffering I've endured will finally be worth it. Several more slimes approached. Yakido rushed toward them with all his strength. He shouted, "I believe in it completely. I must have some kind of absurdly late-blooming status." Yakido thrust his hand into a slime, reaching for the glowing sphere inside it. It has to be true. He even used his teeth to tear through its outer layer. It has to be. At that moment, the system screen reflected in Yakido's eyes. He had waited so long for this moment. At last, that fateful time had arrived. Notification. System message corrupted due to interference. The character is in a dying state. Yakido raised his trembling hand. Now, right now, notification, system transfer. A glorious announcement appeared. Adventurer Yakido Takahashi has successfully reached the maximum level limit. Congratulations on your great achievement. I've waited so long. Reward me for all the bitter, difficult years I've endured. Notification, strength has increased. Still kneeling, Yakido clasped his hands together in prayer. Yukido's status information was updated. Strength increased to 6. Nothing else changed. The notification felt like a brutal slap across Yukido's face. He stood there in a daze. That can't be. Yakido nearly collapsed. You must be toying with my fate. Nothing changed at all. He burst into tears, overwhelmed by years of pent-up resentment. Are you truly not going to give me anything? Behind Yakido, countless red monster eyes stared at him. Yakido despaired. It really is hopeless. I can still keep going. There's still one final ray of hope. The monsters had arrived. They surrounded Yakido. He felt that his life had truly been the worst and most miserable existence imaginable. Yakido remembered every humiliation he had suffered, being despised and cast aside by everyone around him. He had not even possessed the power to save his beloved mother, who had always loved and cherished him. He had even cruelly ruined the happiness his only younger sister deserved. Closing his eyes, he accepted the end of a life filled with failure and bitterness. So this is how it ends. The sound of beast claws scraped fiercely against the ground. Fresh blood and shattered scales flew through the air. Notification, you have died. Multiple status values are in disarray. Notification, red alert. A critical system error has been detected in Yukido's status system. An emergency technical patch is being applied, reversing the timeline of your life. Your long-hidden parameters have been successfully unlocked. Compensation for the status system error. You have received an additional 9,999 special status points. When he awoke, his vision was still blurry. A female employee stood before him, and a voice said, "Congratulations, Yakido." Everything before him remained hazy. As his vision cleared, he saw the receptionist smiling brightly. "Starting today, you have officially become a true adventurer." Yakido had returned to his youth. He remained frozen, unable to understand what had happened. The receptionist asked with concern, "Is something wrong?" Yakido accepted his name tag necklace and replied with a smile, "No, it's nothing." The receptionist politely continued, "In that case, thank you very much." Yakido left the hall and entered an empty corridor. He took out his phone to check it, his face going blank when he saw the date and time on the screen. Yakido remembered clearly. This was the fateful day when he had first registered at the Adventurers Guild all those years ago. Recalling the notifications from before, he tried to understand what was happening. Just before I took my last breath, I think I saw a strange notification about compensation status points. Yakido immediately opened his status window to check. His stats were exactly the same as they had been 55 years ago. Of course they are, but when he saw that the scroll bar had not reached the bottom, he wondered whether he could scroll down further. The next information stunned Yakido. A prominent golden number caught his eye. Luck, 9,999. Wait a second, what kind of insane status screen is this? Only then did Yakido dare believe that the luck stat was real. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. In my previous life, this should have been a legendary hidden parameter. I can hardly believe it. Even now, Yukido's hands were trembling. I spent 75 years living in misfortune, didn't I? He involuntarily recalled the moment in his previous life when death had been close at hand. Yakido did not want to overthink it. Fine. First, I'll hunt some slimes and test this out. When he stepped through the teleportation gate, a vast grassland appeared before him at the foot of the mountain, the first floor of the Tokyo dungeon. The first trial grounds, unfading footprints. Yakido gazed into the distance. There they are. Looking at the harmless-looking blue slimes scattered across the grass, he sighed. This feels just like home. Suddenly, something moved at incredible speed past Yukido's back. Yakido guessed in surprise. Could that be? He noticed it was a different color from the others. A silver slime. According to his memories from his previous life, it was an ultra-rare monster that appeared only once in a long while. He had only seen one once before, and it had escaped in the blink of an eye. He raised his sword, ready to kill it. It granted an enormous amount of experience, but it was famous for fleeing as soon as it spotted a person. Yakido accelerated in pursuit. Just one more step, and my attack will reach it. Suddenly, something embedded itself in the ground beside his foot. An adventurer in the distance had fired an arrow. My arrow slipped. Annoyed, Yakido thought, "You idiot." The silver slime appeared to be trying to escape. Yakido worried. That sound was so loud, it's definitely going to run away now. The silver slime suddenly shot past him. Yakido stared at it in shock and raised his guard. It's attacking me. Rather than fleeing, the silver slime charged straight at him. Yakido raised his sword and calmly aimed. He thrust it into the creature, counterattacking. His blade pierced the sphere inside the silver slime. Its body burst apart into droplets. Notification: congratulations, you have reached level 4. Yakido stared speechlessly at his broken sword. It broke after one hit? Still, silver slimes have extremely tough outer shells. I need to buy a new weapon. As he stared blankly at the blade, a golden light appeared behind him. Yakido was startled. That light. Could it be? Looking at the weapon lying in the grass, he was shocked. An ultra-rare S-rank item drop. And it's a weapon too? Yakido lifted the sword hilt. What an incredibly lucky start. Item information: Silver Slime Greatsword. Trait: high attack power, but due to the silver slime's tendency to flee, it has a 30% chance to miss. With the silver sword, Yakido felt much more confident. Now, let's keep hunting. Then he spotted 4 silver slimes in front of him. I can't believe it. Silver slimes again? Am I dreaming? They all charged toward him at once. Yakido exclaimed, "They're actually coming at me on their own." Now unafraid, he raised his sword. I have no choice but to fight and take them down. This weapon misses easily. I can't deal with all of them at once. Yakido swung down with all his strength, but it was a critical hit, splitting the silver slime in two. Yakido skillfully swung his sword and cut down the entire group. When the final one was slain, Yakido finally lowered his sword. A pile of high-quality items appeared. He joyfully picked one up. I seriously wiped them all out by myself. After that, he continued hunting for about an hour. Yakido encountered 10 silver slimes in total. He eagerly chased after them. There's another one. Every one of them dropped an ultra-rare item. Yakido checked his system inventory. My inventory is completely full already. As evening fell, Yakido finally stopped. He cheered happily. At this point, I have no choice but to believe it. He lay back on the lush green grass, feeling the cool breeze. He opened his eyes and looked up at the vast sky, happiness swelling in his heart. This incredible luck is real. With this power in my hands, I can finally become someone. I will definitely give my family a happy life too. My mother, who is suffering from illness. And of course, my little sister as well. Yakido savored the feeling of happiness. Then he suddenly sat upright, remembering something. Wait, at this point in time, do I still have a home to return to? He had completely forgotten. More than 75 years had passed since he had last lived alone. Homesickness welled up inside Yakido. I want to go home. He stepped through the teleportation gate. I really want to see them. Yakido hurried back to his beloved family. He had not stopped running. At last, he had returned home. Yakido stopped, panting heavily. He looked at the apartment building in front of him. Yakido walked down the corridor, trying to remember. Let's see, which part of the second floor was that room in? During the latter half of his previous life, he had been homeless with nowhere to turn, so he had forgotten nearly everything. Only when he saw the name on the door plate could he confirm it. That's right, room 203. Before his hand could touch the doorknob, he had to calm himself. Calm down. Why is my heart racing so fast? Why am I this nervous? Yakido slowly took a deep breath, then gently exhaled to compose himself. He had gathered his courage. All right, before he could push the door open, his little sister opened it from inside. Seeing the person outside, Nozomi let out a soft cry and opened the door wider. Welcome home, big brother. Overwhelmed with emotion, Yakido looked at his sister and pulled her into a tight embrace. Nozomi was confused by his behavior. Hey, big brother, what's gotten into you? Are you teasing me? Yakido remained silent. He told himself, in this life, I absolutely will not let anyone take them away from me again. My most precious treasures. For the moment, Yakido chose to tell Nozomi everything that had happened. She exclaimed in amazement. That's even more wonderful than I could have imagined. So with that unbelievable luck, you really can save our mother too, right? Yakido confidently confirmed, of course we can, though achieving that will require quite a bit of effort and hard work. With that, he set his glass down on the table, ending the conversation. The next day, Yakido immediately sold the rare items he had just obtained. With the enormous sum he earned from the deal, he joined an auction for an item that had caught his eye and raised his bidding paddle. 10 million yen. Yakido chose to purchase a top-tier medicine for treating physical weakness. The astonished auctioneer brought down the gavel. Once everything was settled, Yakido went to the hospital. His mother was staying in a private room, with a sign on the door bearing the patient's name, Yuko Takahashi. The two siblings stood outside and knocked. "Mom, it's me. I'm coming in," Yakido called. Nozomi peeked inside as well. "We came to see how you're doing today." She asked about them. "My two children, have you both been living well and staying safe all this time?" Yakido answered gently. "Mom, that's supposed to be the question, Nozomi, and I ask you." Nozomi opened a box of pastries for her to see. "Look, Mom, we brought you a little gift today." Yuko happily replied. "Thank you so much, both of you. But you don't need to go through the trouble of bringing me anything next time. Save that money, so you can both eat properly." The siblings reassured her. Yakido said, "Mom, from now on, you won't have to worry about money anymore." Nozomi added, "And today, I have another very special gift for you." Curious, Yuko asked, "What kind of gift is it?" Yakido took out a bottle of medicine and handed it to her. "This may be a little sudden, but I really want you to drink all of this right away." Nozomi proudly said, "Big brother worked hard in that dark dungeon to earn the money to buy this gift for you." Yuko could not help worrying. "But Yakido, you only just officially became an adventurer, didn't you? Can you really earn enough money to buy something this expensive?" "I just got a little lucky, that's all." He placed it in her hands. "Please drink it quickly." Yuko accepted it and opened the bottle. She slowly raised it to her lips and drank. A faint aura of energy spread from Yuko's body, and she immediately looked much livelier. The siblings eagerly asked, "Mom, how does your body feel now?" Yuko described her experience. "It's strange. My body suddenly feels so much lighter, and breathing has become much easier." Yakido sighed in relief. "That's wonderful." Nozomi jumped up and gave him a high five. "My big brother is amazing. It tastes a little bad, though. This medicine really isn't very pleasant," Yuko said. Thoughtfully, Yakido offered her a sweet pastry. "That's why I prepared some sweets for you to have afterward, to cleanse your palate." Seeing that she was healthier, the doctor came to examine her again. Yakido felt much more at ease. The illness ravaging his mother's body had finally been greatly alleviated, and its progression had been completely halted. After a short period of physical therapy and rehabilitation, the doctors officially allowed her to leave the hospital and continue recovering at home. As they left the hospital and felt the open air outside, Yuko sighed emotionally. "It all feels like a dream. I'm so happy that the three of us can live together under one roof again, just like before." Nozomi carefully supported her. "This isn't a dream, Mom." When they returned home, they shared a meal together. Yuko happily said, "Our home really is the most comfortable and peaceful place in the world." Nozomi turned to Yakido. "I'm so happy to know that Mom is getting better." Yakido interrupted, "But this still isn't enough to solve the problem completely." She froze. "Is that really true?" He replied sadly. "That expensive medicine from earlier is only a temporary measure. It cannot cure the root cause of this terrible disease." Nozomi asked for his opinion. "I understand. So what do we have to do next?" He answered, "We need to find a legendary L-rank item with even greater power, something like an elixir of resurrection." Nozomi continued washing the dishes. "I know a little about that legendary elixir. I once saw it on television. The strongest and luckiest adventurers in the world managed to find a bottle." Recalling the news report, she said, "That's right, the elixir of resurrection can only appear in dungeon areas below the 50th floor. It cannot be bought, sold, or traded for money. They're called one-of-a-kind items, aren't they?" Yakido set down the dishes and confirmed, "Exactly." He thought to himself, one-of-a-kind items are extremely special treasures that can only be used by the person who personally obtains them. They are the highest honor, attainable only by those who defeat powerful creatures. Nozomi guessed, "If we can't buy it with money, then that means you have to risk your life and get it yourself, right?" Yakido did not hide the truth. "That's right." Nozomi took the dish from her mother's hand. As she wiped it, she hummed, "Can my brother really make it deeper than the 50th floor of such a dangerous dungeon?" He flatly denied it. "No way. If I tried that, I'd only die for nothing." Nozomi was shocked. "What? Then doesn't that make this completely impossible?" Yakido replied, Well, by this world's normal rules, yes. But he thought, the immense power I have now is not just absurd luck. All the knowledge I accumulated in my previous life is also an incredibly powerful weapon. The elixir of resurrection can appear outside the deepest dungeon floors, and I am the only one who knows about this rare exception. The supreme insect monster that rules the 20th floor of the giant stone dungeon. There is an extremely small chance that defeating it will drop an elixir of resurrection. Of course, the odds are absurdly low because it is a rare item dropped by an exceptionally rare insect monster. In my previous life, it was such an unusual event that I almost never heard of it even once. But with my current supreme luck stat, I can definitely obtain that elixir of resurrection. Seeing him still smiling, Nozomi asked, "Big brother is making that suspicious face again. You look like you're plotting something shady." Yakido was surprised. Did I really make that kind of face? She was not worried at all. "Oh, whatever. No matter what happens, you'll find an easy way to handle it. Won't you, big brother?" Yakido smiled softly at his little sister's adorable trust in him. He poured himself a glass of orange juice. "Of course I can. First, I need to make some careful preparations." Nozomi asked curiously. "Preparations?" Yakido revealed. "There is always an alternative solution to every difficult problem." Yakido reached toward the family photograph on the table. He thought, the things I need to prepare before venturing into a dark dungeon. First is combat equipment, the silver slime greatsword. It has extremely high attack power, but because silver slimes instinctively flee, this weapon comes with a 30% chance of veering off target and missing. It is also coated in silver slime tears, a liquid that grants any equipment a 1 in 3 chance to have the damage received. Nozomi watched from the doorway. "Big brother, are you getting ready to enter the dungeon again?" Seeing Yukido's equipment, she was uneasy. "But are you sure it's okay to wear such thin clothing? Real warriors all wear much heavier and sturdier armor, don't they?" He answered awkwardly. "Normally, that would be true, but my starting attributes are far too low." Yakido thought, the status panel that is supposed to develop all of a person's hidden potential still refuses to increase any of my stats, aside from my overwhelming luck. With attributes this poor and low, it is impossible for me to wear heavy armor all over my body. Even casually swinging this massive greatsword is already my limit. But in exchange, I have learned a new combat skill after leveling up. Explosive Heavy Strike, a warrior class skill that delivers a critical hit with a 30% chance. Nozomi understood. "So your next plan is to work hard to raise your starting attributes, right? Let's see. The 5th floor of the dungeon, Alice's Crown, Withered Forest. The monsters there have an extremely rare drop called the Miracle Fruit. You just need to be careful and stay safe." Thoughtfully, Nozomi handed Yakido something. "I prepared a lunchbox for you two, although you might get full just by eating those miraculous fruits." Moved, he accepted it. "This will be a huge help. Thank you." The lunchbox was then placed into the system inventory. Before leaving home, Yakido said, "Then I'm off. Take good care of yourselves, everyone." Yakido arrived at the Withered Forest. The place was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere where monstrous flowers hunted insects. Yakido stepped out through the dungeon gate. This was the 5th floor of the Tokyo dungeon, Alice's Crown, the Withered Forest. Yakido thought, the 5th floor, Alice's Crown, better known among adventurers as the Withered Forest, is a relatively easy dungeon floor. Its monsters are mostly mutated plant types. After all, this is only an upper, shallow floor. Other adventure parties have long since cleared out thoroughly. As long as I have a map and don't make any reckless decisions, there should be no danger. The surroundings were eerily quiet. He knew this was the territory where trance gathered. Yakido looked toward the strange trees. Trance were plant monsters that excelled at camouflage and ambushes, making them difficult to distinguish from ordinary harmless trees in the forest. Yakido bent down and picked up a stone, but their camouflage was not flawless. He threw it forward. If you look carefully, you will notice that their leaves lack natural veins, while the direction and depth of their roots look extremely strange and unnatural. The stone struck a tree trunk. His attack had hit its target precisely. The treant pulled its roots out of the ground and angrily approached. It glared at the newcomer, Yakido, with blood-red eyes. Without the slightest fear, Yakido immediately dashed forward and unleashed a perfectly accurate critical strike. One lethal slash split the Traian in two. Yakido understood that as long as he remained highly alert and guarded against surprise attacks from blind spots, these creatures were merely ordinary opponents that he could dispatch in an instant. Hearing a sound behind him, he turned around. When he saw the fruit that had dropped, Yakido rejoiced. Oh, it finally appeared. The miracle fruit, an extremely rare drop. He picked up the bright red fruit and took a bite. A faint red aura radiated from Yakido's body. This miraculous fruit tasted like a thin slice of pear or apple. But he checked the system panel. Its flavor was completely unimportant right now. Let's check my attributes again. When he saw his level had risen to 21, he was overjoyed. Great, they really increased. The miracle fruit had a special effect that permanently increased attributes by a small amount. By making use of this miraculous fruit, even someone with trash attributes like mine can gradually grow stronger. From then on, Yakido went on a frenzied hunt for Traiants, relentlessly killing them and eating their drops. After hunting and eating non-stop, he had truly grown tired of the repetitive bland taste. He took out the lunchbox Nozomi had prepared and ate it. Checking the system, Yakido realized, I have finally reached this stage's maximum growth limit. He was now level 23, with his strength increased to 27 and all his other attributes raised by more than 10 points. Yakido knew that his stats had finally reached the average standard for warriors of his level. He stretched. All right, I'll stop here for today. It's time to go home. At that moment, something dangerous flashed past behind Yakido. He became alert. Who is hiding over there? The other party spoke. Well, it's not very nice of you to hog such a lucrative hunting ground all to yourself. Today, we'll personally teach a rookie like you some manners. There were two of them. Yakido noticed that neither of them possessed a legitimate adventurer identification card. You creeps are criminal drifters. One of them confirmed it. That's right. You're just some rich kid who relies on expensive equipment, aren't you? The other man threatened. If you know what's good for you and leave all that equipment, far too luxurious for someone of your actual ability, behind here, we might be merciful enough to let you live. Yakido remembered that criminal drifters were illegal criminals who committed vile acts within dungeons. There had been warnings. Always remain extremely vigilant around drifters. If you encounter anyone behaving suspiciously, report them to the Adventurers Guild immediately. Yakido watched them warily. I had been warned about people like them before, but I never expected to be unlucky enough to encounter them here. The two men mocked him. What's wrong? Are you so scared that you can't even speak? Don't be so scared that you wet yourself. That would seriously lower the value of the expensive gear you're wearing. Yakido warned them. What a ridiculous and ignorant bunch. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I don't have even the smallest scrap of wood to spare for lowly criminals like you. The two men darkened with anger upon hearing this. One of them drew his sword from his inventory. You ignorant brat, since you've cruelly rejected our generous offer, we'll just kill you and take everything ourselves. The other mage added, You weak, worthless fool. Where do you get the confidence to think you can win an uneven 2-against-1 fight? Both of them charged at Yakido, and he began to move as well. Yakido targeted one of them first. The man sneered, You idiot. Don't you even understand the most basic tactical principle? You take out the mage first. Yakido activated explosive heavy strike and leaped high into the air. The man was still laughing. You really are nothing more than an amateur. There's no way that trash skill with a 70% miss rate could possibly hit me. Take this, my guaranteed hit attack skill, Bee Sting Venom Strike. As his sword thrust forward, Yakido's blade came crashing down. The man's sword grazed Yakido. The glow of Yakido's energy reflected on his face, and he cried out, This is really bad. Yakido's slash sent him flying, and his body slammed hard into the tree behind him. Pain shot through his chest, twisting his face into a grimace. At last, he foamed at the mouth. He collapsed. The mage could not believe that he had been completely unable to react to Yakido's sudden attack. But that equipment only has a 30% activation rate. Yakido marveled. What unbelievably good luck. He turned to the remaining man. Now, it's officially one-on-one, isn't it? Then he fell into thought. Everything had activated with astonishing precision. The Bee Sting Venom Strike the enemy had just used was a skill that could only be learned at level 25. That meant his opponent had been much higher level than him. Bee Sting Venom Strike was a guaranteed hit attack that could not be dodged by ordinary means. However, In exchange for that effect, it reduced the user's original attack power by 30%. Meanwhile, the layer of silver slime tears Yakido had carefully coated over his clothes had a 1 in 3 chance of reducing incoming damage by half. So in reality, he had taken only about 30% of the attack's original damage. If he had not possessed such extraordinary luck today, a horrifying hole might have been punched through his abdomen. The mage spoke up. I can't believe it. I can't believe Yamada was defeated so easily with a single blow. Yakido declared, if you surrender willingly right now, I may show mercy and forgive your crimes. But the mage remained stubborn. Don't look down on me. At this safe distance, a mage like me can easily control and deal with a warrior like you. Yakido calmly replied, that's true. From this distance, it would be impossible for a strength-based warrior like you to get close to me. The mage sheathed his sword and smugly asked, what's this? Are you feeling cornered and ready to give up? Yakido reached into his inventory. Of course not. He switched weapons. I'm just. Yakido was now holding a staff, preparing to use it. The staff was unusual, its body covered in blooming flowers. The mage laughed until his stomach hurt. You brat, do you even know what you're holding? Yakido swung it. Of course I do. This is a random staff, an item I happened to pick up from the corpse of an unlucky monster that didn't drop a single miracle fruit. The mage disdainfully replied, you truly are an ignorant amateur. In theory, the random staff is classified as a 5th-rank rare item, but in reality, it's an unstable piece of junk that randomly activates spells without regard for its user's wishes. Its spell activation rates are absurdly biased. Everyone knows it's worthless. The random staff contains very few genuinely useful spells. It has a 40% chance to fail completely, a 30% chance to cast low-level magic, a 9% chance for intermediate magic, and a 20% chance to apply stat buffs or debuffs. Your explosive heavy strike may have a 30% activation rate and could get you lucky enough to hit a few times, but drawing the exact spell you want is utterly impossible once the random staff spell selection begins. Smugly, he conjured a stream of flames. The spell I'm focusing on right now is the powerful intermediate spell, Fireball. The man puffed out his chest proudly. Even if he somehow gets lucky enough to land on that rare 9% chance and cast intermediate magic, my mage exclusive equipment has raised my magic power to 50. With all my enchanted treasures, my magical strength is guaranteed to surpass his. In other words, a true mage like me will put an end to the luck of a rookie like you right now. The mage gathered an enormous mass of flame. Receive this punishment, Fireball. A roaring fireball shot toward Yakido. He had waited so long, he was nearly falling asleep. It finally showed up. I'm completely ready for you two. The staff began to emit mystical energy. A red sphere formed. Yakido declared, random staff, unleash your power. He raised the staff. The staff produced a gigantic fireball. Yakido lifted it high overhead, then swung his arm downward. The fireball surged forward, and blazing flames spread to the nearby trees. Charred fragments scattered through the air on the wind. The fireball the mage had been so proud of was only a fraction of the size of Yakido's. Yakido's overwhelming fireball crushed the tiny one through sheer size. The mage collapsed in terror. What? My fireball was neutralized that easily? That's impossible. He actually drew Meteor Strike, a legendary highest-level spell? The odds of that are less than. The enormous fireball chased after him. Clinging to a faint hope, he thought, that's right. This must be a harmless illusion spell meant to deceive the eye. The heat scorched his bangs. It was all real. The mage screamed, it's hot. The flames had reached his clothes. The mage could not escape. His body was being burned by searing heat. He gaped at the horrifying sight as the heat blasted against his face and lower body. The mage was so terrified that he lost control of himself. A violent explosion erupted and spread outward. When everything settled, the entire area had been scorched black. Thick smoke rose all around, and the mage's clothes had been burned away by the intense flames. At the same time, the staff in Yakido's hand snapped apart and caught fire. He blew out the flames on its shaft. Then he tossed it behind him. I'm sorry this had to happen to you, but I happen to possess extraordinary luck. Yakido sighed as he looked at the two pathetic men. He had finally won, but he could not simply leave these criminal drifters lying here. He cut down some vines nearby. This is a bit troublesome, but I'll have to carry them back to the surface myself. He tied them up one by one. If I bind them this way, that should be enough to restrain them. Yakido dragged them away. It's time to head back to the surface. Let's get moving. As soon as he reached the surface, Yakido handed the criminal drifters over to the police. By the time he finished giving his statement and submitting evidence to the authorities, it was already completely dark outside. Yakido was utterly exhausted. He returned to the Adventurers Guild reception desk. "I'm sorry for submitting my report so late. I got caught up in some unnecessary trouble." "You're Yakido, correct? We've already received the full details from the police." "That's great. It saves me a lot of time explaining everything." The receptionist smiled brightly. "Congratulations." She handed him a box containing a necklace. "Mr. Takahashi, you have officially been promoted to silver rank by the Adventurers Guild." Yakido was surprised. "Promoted? Is there some kind of mistake? I don't think I've contributed enough to deserve this honor." Promotion to silver rank is not easy. Even exceptionally talented people usually need 3 full years of effort. You must collect and submit 10 designated items, personally defeat vicious monsters, and make meaningful contributions to the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist politely said, "There is no mistake. This is an official decision from our superiors." The 2 criminals you captured were core members of the notorious Red 8 Gang. Yakido knew of them. The Red 8 Gang was an antisocial criminal organization wanted across the country. Because of that, your contribution points have increased considerably. Still, defeating them alone is an extremely impressive achievement. Both criminals possess combat abilities and strength equivalent to genuine silver rank adventurers. Yakido was stunned. "Seriously? So those vicious men were actually that strong? I was in a pretty dangerous situation myself." He accepted the nameplate necklace. "I was just a little lucky, that's all." The receptionist continued, "Come now, you don't need to be so modest. You're now officially a silver rank adventurer. The Adventurers Guild hopes you will begin exploring areas beyond the first floor of the dungeon. Adventurers are strictly limited in the dungeon floors they may enter according to their rank. Bronze rank adventurers may only enter up to the 10th floor, while silver rank adventurers may explore as far as the 30th floor. As for gold rank, there are no restrictions at all." Yakido put on the necklace. "I understand the rules. My immediate goal is to explore at least as far as the 20th floor." The receptionist hesitated. "We will fully support you, but the 20th floor is an exceptionally dangerous area. So, at the very least, I do not recommend that you explore it alone." Yakido bowed. "Thank you sincerely for the valuable advice." With that, he immediately turned and left. Yakido secretly rejoiced. He had advanced in rank much sooner than planned. Perhaps getting caught up in trouble with those criminal drifters had turned out to be a blessing in disguise. An old man approached him. "Excuse me for disturbing you so suddenly, but may I have a moment of your time?" Yakido immediately agreed. "Of course. What is it?" the old man asked. "Are you the adventurer who defeated these 2 criminals?" Their wanted posters were displayed on the notice board. Junpei Yamada, charged with robbery, 20 years old, 180 centimeters tall, bounty, 1 million yen. Hiroshi Hashimoto, charged with robbery and murder, 30 years old, 150 centimeters tall, bounty, 1 million yen. Yakido confirmed, "That's right. They suddenly attacked me, so I had no choice but to fight back in self-defense." The old man's entire body trembled. He grasped Yakido's hand emotionally. "Thank you so much." Confused by his reaction, Yakido watched as the old man tore down the poster. "These demons brutally murdered my beloved son. You captured criminals that even the police were powerless to touch." Yakido modestly replied, "It was nothing. I was only trying to fulfill my duty as an adventurer." The old man bowed deeply and sincerely. "Even so, I will always be deeply grateful to you for this great deed." Yakido stood there in a daze. The old man began to cry. "Now I can finally bring this good news to my poor son's grave." As the old man walked away, Yakido recalled that in his miserable former life, he had never received even a single sincere word of thanks from anyone. Honestly, being appreciated like this did not feel bad at all. But on second thought, if things continued along this path, the entire world would surely face destruction by the time he became a feeble old man. As the only person who possessed knowledge of the future, should he do something to change that cruel fate? Absolutely do not get complacent or let your thoughts run too far ahead, you little slime. At this point, you do not possess the immense power needed to change the entire world. Yakido slapped his cheeks and pushed those thoughts to the back of his mind. Be realistic. The first and most important goal I need to accomplish is saving my mother's life. That takes top priority. The scene shifted to a certain organization. This gloomy place was illuminated by wall-mounted torches, while several weapons and supplies lay on a stone table. An enraged man cursed. "Damn it, I can hardly believe my eyes. Both Yamada and Hashimoto were defeated so easily and so miserably. If this terrible situation continues, we will no longer be able to intimidate the others or set an example. We will also fail to fulfill our duty of regularly offering tribute to those higher up." His eyes turned bloodshot with hatred as he picked up a sharp knife from the table. He noticed Yukido's photograph in a newspaper. "I will never forgive you for this blood debt, Yakido." The knife slashed across the photograph. "I will personally take your life to avenge this." His eyes were filled with bloodlust. Suddenly, Yakido calmed himself down. The man set the knife down. "But I will never allow myself to become careless or let down my guard against you." That bastard Yakido managed to defeat both Yamada and Hashimoto in a 1-against-2 battle. That alone is clear proof that his actual combat ability is anything but ordinary. Still, there are always countless methods and schemes in this world to deal with a situation like this. Kido draped a cloak over himself. "It is truly unfortunate for you that you have caught my attention." As Yakido stepped out of the dungeon gate, he looked ahead in wonder. This was the 15th floor of Dungeon 3. Standing amid the layered Rocky Mountain ranges, he murmured, "Proud Hollow, lonely peaks." Yakido had difficulty moving through the area. The paths here were extremely narrow and winding, while the mountainous terrain was treacherous and packed with deadly traps. Because of these complicated natural conditions, exploring in a party was exceptionally difficult. It would be best to split into 2 separate groups. This was an extremely remote region, difficult for others to discover. Because of that, rumors had spread that it was an ideal hideout for all sorts of vile crimes. Stepping into the light, Yakido threw his sword into the cliff wall. He stepped on the sword and used it to launch himself upward. But for a lone hunter like me, this place is the perfect stage. At the same time, Yakido seized the sword's hilt. Facing a monstrous bird, he prepared himself. "I must do everything I can to raise my level to new heights before I officially face the brutal trials of the 20th floor. I have to learn entirely new combat skills right here." In truth, I wanted to level up by hunting those rare silver slimes. But I hunted and slaughtered such an enormous number of them lately that they seem to have gone completely extinct. They have not appeared even once since. Now I have no choice but to grind levels by accumulating kills from ordinary monsters. At that very moment, round stone monsters appeared before him. Yakido told himself, "Now, let's fight with everything I have." Yakido killed all kinds of monsters throughout the dungeon. He obtained many new items, including a bow, gloves, and swords. I finally got my hands on a rare item. Kido had arrived. He hid behind a boulder and watched Yakido fight alone. He carries only a silver slime greatsword and wears no protective armor at all. There can be no mistake. That bastard over there is Yakido. I can hardly believe that he has the audacity to venture so deeply into my inviolable territory. He is clearly looking down on my abilities. Still, rushing in to attack him now would bring me no real benefit. I will patiently remain hidden until he completely lets down his guard. Then I will kill him. Seeing Yakido's actions, Kido was surprised. He is setting up camp to rest for the night. Kido watched until night fell. Yakido had lit a fire and was resting beneath a rocky overhang. Kido thought, judging from the situation, it seems he intends to remain in this dungeon for quite some time. I have just come up with a perfect and deeply calculated plan. A lowly nobody like him is not worthy of me personally dealing with him. This place is my territory. After all, we possess the overwhelming advantage of home ground. Just like in a natural world outside, a balanced and recurring ecosystem exists among these hideous monsters, and I can exploit that fatal trait to turn it into a huge advantage for my plan. His plan was to slaughter and reduce the population of apex predators, and deliberately create conditions for the lower prey species to multiply. Kido dropped food into the insect's nest. Their red eyes looked terrifying. He understood their biology well. These hideous monsters had always possessed the ability to reproduce and multiply at an astonishing rate. Once the pyramid structure of the ecosystem was disrupted and collapsed, their population could explode out of control with ease. Kido sat in a room and waited. The fateful moment has finally arrived. To put it simply, once he felt the time was right, Kido left his hideout. The horrific incident about to occur would ultimately be considered nothing more than an ordinary accident. An unlucky adventurer would be swept up and devoured by the chaotic storm known as a monster riot, a savage, bloodthirsty horde of magical beasts. By this cruel method, his death would never attract the attention or suspicion of either the public or the authorities. Kido brought another bag to the insect's nest. Countless bloodthirsty eyes stared from within. He rejoiced. Everything is proceeding perfectly according to plan. Class C insect repellent powder, a specialized substance capable of repelling medium-sized monsters. He poured the entire bag into the nest. It is time for the final step of my plan. Now then, you damned bastard. As the dense swarm of insects took flight, Kido said with delight, "Prepare yourself for a miserable death so complete that not even a bone will remain. Let them rush in and gnaw every last part of your body clean." At that moment, Yakido was killing a monster. Yakido stopped and looked in that direction. What is that strange, rapid sound echoing from far away? The brightly lit surroundings suddenly went dark. He looked up. It looks like a gigantic black cloud. That can't be. It's impossible. Yakido finally realized that a terrifying monster riot was underway. An innumerable swarm of death locusts was madly sweeping through the area. This crisis was a disaster no individual could withstand alone. Yakido immediately turned and ran. He understood that he had to immediately find other adventurer parties and work together with them. But where would adventurers be gathered at a time like this? Suddenly, he remembered a valuable piece of knowledge from his past life. In his previous life, he had heard important information. There was a secret supply station on this dungeon floor. He recalled two people chatting about it. Since the Three Peaks base station had been built and put into operation, exploring the Proud Hollow, Lonely Peaks had become much easier and more convenient for adventurers. That must be the legendary Red Earth Cave. Yakido had seen it on a map. For some mysterious reason, this important location was never recorded or mentioned in ordinary dungeon exploration guidebooks. He stopped in front of the earthen cave. Yakido decided, I have no time left to waste getting lost. He immediately slid down below. Yakido landed on a golden frog beneath him, then leaped aside and touched the stone wall. Just as I thought, the color of the earth here is distinctly different from the surrounding areas. Yakido shouted toward it. Emergency! A massive monster riot is happening. Everyone, please work together and fight so we can survive this disaster. The stone wall remained motionless. Yakido turned back to see the locust swarm approaching. He had no choice but to slash at the cave entrance. The situation is extremely urgent. Even if I have to force my way in with violence, I must get inside. Chunks of earth and stone shattered apart, revealing a passage into the cave. Seeing people tied up inside, Yakido froze as he stared at the sight before him. What the hell is going on here? Those people wore only thin clothes. Their mouths gagged as they looked at him pleadingly. Yakido asked speechlessly, "So you people have that kind of bizarre and perverted hobby?" Everyone shook their heads frantically. Yakido drew his sword and prepared to enter. I see. So that is what happened. Yakido moved at tremendous speed, cutting through their ropes with his sword. The bindings wrapped around their bodies fell away. Everyone was overjoyed. I am saved. I thought my life was going to end here. Yakido asked curiously, what exactly happened to all of you here? Two people spoke up. I was ambushed and attacked by vicious criminal drifters. They use an item that induces physical weakness, knocking me unconscious immediately. Someone else continued, they did not kill me right away. That means they are most likely keeping me alive to sell my body at auction. That must be it, a criminal human trafficking ring. Yakido realized he had entered the enemy's den. In other words, this place was actually a dangerous criminal hideout used by the drifters. At this point, it had not yet been converted into a safe supply station for adventurers. Yakido suddenly thought, could that be it? The knowledge in my mind concerns important events that were only supposed to occur at some point in the distant future. According to the original course of history, those damned criminal drifters were supposed to be captured by the authorities in the near future. Only afterward would this cave be renovated and repurposed as a solid supply base for adventurers exploring the dungeon. But I discovered this place before that future could truly happen. During my miserable previous life, I was completely isolated from the changes taking place in the world. I did nothing but hunt harmless slimes for 75 long years, with a worldview and sense of time of a senile old man. To me, 10 years, or any equivalent span of time, was merely an insignificant little difference. Even 40 or 55 years meant nothing to me. In any case, I can carefully analyze this matter after everything is over. Yukito's gaze shifted toward them. He thought, although this unexpected situation lies entirely outside my original expectations, I must find a way to make the most of the limited manpower available and fight. He spoke up. I fully understand the urgent situation now. I'm sorry for making such an abrupt request at a time like this, but please listen carefully to what I am about to say. Yukito pointed toward the sky outside. A massive swarm of death locusts was madly sweeping toward this dungeon area at that very moment. They swarmed toward the Red Earth Cave, looking savage and bloodthirsty. Everyone panicked. What the hell is happening? Are you saying that entire black cloud in the distance is actually made of bloodthirsty death locusts? A monster riot? Their numbers are far too enormous. They're completely out of control. Yukito confirmed it. Based on what you can see with your own eyes, we have very little time left. If everyone here has a strong desire to survive and leave this place alive, then please join forces with me and fight. They consulted one another. Join forces? With such a terrifyingly huge army of vicious monsters, there is no way we can simply run away from them. Someone objected. That is completely impossible. We do not even have any weapons or protective armor right now. One shirtless man said, those criminal drifters took all of our valuable combat equipment, didn't they? Fortunately, Yukito was secretly well equipped. You do not need to worry about that. I have plenty of combat gear here. He swiped across the screen, and a large pile of items fell out of his storage space. Yukito declared, there are more than enough treasures here to equip everyone. Everyone stared wide-eyed at the glittering pile of items. Please feel free to choose and use whichever weapons suit you best. If you truly want them, I can even transfer permanent ownership of all this equipment to you immediately. They found it utterly unbelievable. Are you really serious about such an excessively generous offer? These are all rare items that dropped in this very dungeon. We know quality when we see it, and they are all level 5 treasures of exceptional rarity. How could you possibly have collected such an astonishing number of them all by yourself? They began to wonder about Yukito's background. Just who is this extraordinary man standing before us? I have never once seen his name on the rankings of outstanding adventurers. Has anyone here ever heard of him? Some of them put on the equipment and began choosing weapons they liked. In that case, I'll choose this longsword. That's not fair. Then I'll take this mighty battle spear. They were extremely pleased with the rare equipment. After all, protective armor was far more important than offensive weapons. This sturdy breastplate fits my body perfectly. A young man praised the sword he had selected. If this valuable treasure were sold on the open market, it would surely fetch a fortune. A female mage asked in disbelief, do you truly intend to give all this luxurious equipment to us for free? Yukito confirmed, of course. That is exactly right. However, in exchange, and this is by no means a compulsory condition, would everyone be willing to let me take sole command of the upcoming battle? A woman asked, what does everyone think of this proposal? The man beside her replied, personally, I think it is entirely reasonable. After all, he is the great benefactor who saved our lives from certain death. The others voiced their support. He even generously gave us these priceless pieces of combat equipment. I completely agree with this arrangement. I will absolutely follow all of his instructions and battle orders. Me too. I absolutely do not want to die miserably and become leftovers for that horrifying monster riot. Seeing their united agreement, Yukito said, thank you all sincerely. Remembering how he had been rejected in his previous life, Yukito felt a surge of emotion in his heart. He continued, thank you for trusting me. Yukito's appreciation made them trust him even more. His expression became serious. Yukito raised his hand as he explained, we will make the most of this cave's narrow, hazardous terrain and turn it into a weapon against our enemies. With this formation, we will only have to face a very limited number of enemies at any given time. Everyone focus on one goal, reduce their numbers as efficiently as possible. The team members' expressions became serious. The female mage carefully memorized his words. With Yukito there, They felt more confident. He pointed his sword toward the locust swarm. The battle for survival officially began. The first one was crushed beneath Yukido's foot. He swung his sword forward, while the locusts were struck by every kind of attack. They were engulfed in flames. The archers, mages, and Yakido at the front line worked in perfect coordination. Countless streams of energy shot forth in a dazzling display of color. Outside, the locust swarm remained enormous, densely clinging to the earthen cave walls. Some gnawed at the ground with their jaws, and then they poured into the cave in a mass. Someone cursed, "Damn it, their numbers are far beyond anything I imagined." Another person said as he slashed at them, "It's as if this bloodthirsty army has no end." Yakido understood clearly that continuing to fight this way would get them nowhere. Could they truly hold these monsters off forever? At that moment, loose stones began falling from above. He exclaimed, "The ceiling." Another person finished, "It's showing signs of cracking and collapsing." He shouted, "Everyone retreat immediately, but do not panic or break formation." Numerous cracks appeared across the ceiling, and more rubble began to fall. They fled just before the earthen cave collapsed. The death locusts chased after them relentlessly. They realized that these disgusting creatures were frantically gnawing and tunneling through the entire mountain structure. What are we supposed to do now? We are gradually being forced back and losing our positional advantage. Yakido turned back to assess the situation inside. He silently judged that this was actually an abandoned mine with a very unstable, unfinished structure. Then Yakido noticed a tube of explosives in the corner of the cave. His gaze sharpened as he stared at it. Yakido guessed that it was plastic explosive, likely prepared in advance by the criminal drifters to expand their hideout. He picked it up. At a critical moment like this could become an extremely useful weapon. A notification appeared. Successfully obtained 10 low-quality plastic explosives. He ordered the entire team, "Listen up. If you find any plastic explosives nearby, pick them up immediately." Someone casually picked one up. Can that really be used as a weapon? The others also began gathering them. As Yakido watched the team fight desperately, he understood that they had been dragged into a suffocating battle against the terrifying onslaught of the death locust swarm. They fought tenaciously for many long hours. 2/3 of Three Peaks Base Station had already been heavily damaged and destroyed. A woman looked toward the edge of the mountain behind them. "We've been driven into a dead end. There is nowhere left to go." The other members said fearfully, "My stamina is completely depleted. This defensive wall will not hold for much longer." Yakido frowned as he found himself cornered. He closed his eyes. If things had truly reached such a desperate point, Yakido declared, "Everyone, hand over every plastic explosive you have to me immediately." Someone tossed one toward him and said, "Fine, but there are far too many enemies outside. We cannot wipe them all out just by throwing bombs manually." Another woman worried, "That would only be a drop in the ocean." Yakido took the explosives. "That will not be a problem. You do not need to worry. My plan is to blow up this entire massive rock wall and bury those damned enemies beneath it forever." He added all of them to his inventory. These disgusting monsters possessed extremely low intelligence, so they would always prioritize attacking the target that posed the greatest threat to their swarm. And right now, the person with the highest monster kill count was none other than himself. The explosives were thrown into the cave. A young man anxiously looked at the ceiling. "That enormous opening above us is about to collapse completely." Yakido ordered them, "Everyone, run away with all your strength." They realized what he intended. Could it be that you're planning to sacrifice yourself and die together with the death locusts? A normal warrior does not even know how to use explosives properly, right? Yukido's voice was strangely calm. "Please place your trust in me this one time." Rubble fell as dense waves of locusts flew toward him. Yakido understood that every person's life had moments when they had no choice but to take a gamble and face the greatest risks. It seemed that moment had come for him now. He tapped the screen and activated all 13 plastic explosives at once. Once the operation was complete, Yakido leaped high into the air. He shouted, "Come at me, you cursed bloodthirsty locusts." A red notification appeared. System warning. You do not possess the specialized skill, Explosive Handling Mastery. Successful detonation rate greatly reduced by 50%. He thought, as an ordinary warrior, My detonation success rate is extremely low. But what if I rely on my extraordinary luck? The notification repeated. System warning. This is a low-quality product. Successful detonation rate further reduced by 25%. He silently prayed, "Please work." Luck smiled upon him once again as a notification appeared. Item activation successful. Yakido rejoiced. It actually worked. The explosives detonated. A massive blaze erupted, blowing apart the entire swarm of locusts. Cracks spread through the cave as he brought the locusts down with him. At the same time, Yakido found a way to protect himself. He landed on a rocky ledge. Then he swiftly leaped across the surrounding rocks, his body moving with incredible agility. Yakido raised the silver sword in his hand and split a boulder in two with explosive heavy strike. Yakido coldly glanced at his opponent. There is still one stubborn monster that refuses to fall. When it saw Yakido confronting it, it bared a vicious expression. He unleashed explosive heavy strike again. The locust was cleaved in half by a brilliant, powerful sword arc. Yakido returned to the top. His expression finally relaxed. The people above warned him that gigantic monster is trying to weaken our offensive momentum. Our close-range attacks cannot reach it. Hearing this, he frowned. He drove his sword into the rock wall, but its tip slipped free. Yakido's entire body fell. I was so close. A rope was thrown down. Hold onto it with all your strength. It wrapped around his wrist, and Yakido tightly gripped the lifeline. Everyone strained to pull him up. Pull back. Yakido smiled faintly after being saved from danger. The sky turned orange as dusk gradually fell. Beneath the cliff lay locust corpses and scattered rubble. Sitting high above and looking at the scene, Yakido felt that, judging by the current situation, he had completely won this dangerous gamble for survival. Everyone rejoiced. We were finally saved. To survive such a terrifying monster riot without a single casualty is truly a miracle. Yakido smiled softly as they cheered. An update appeared. Successfully eliminated a large number of locusts. Damage dealt to mutated insect-type monsters increased by 20%. Your level has increased by 3. You have successfully learned a new skill, Warrior's Intuition. When Kido heard the news, he kicked the table in rage. The monster riot has been completely wiped out, and even our secret hideout has been destroyed and reduced to rubble. If this keeps up, the higher-ups will surely have me killed. Every one of these disasters was caused by that bastard. He grabbed the bottle beside him and guzzled down its contents. Still unsatisfied, Kido hurled the bottle against the wall, where it shattered with a sharp crash. He snarled, "I will kill him with my own hands to avenge this, no matter the cost, even if I have to pay with my worthless life." The scene shifted to Yakido, who had returned to the reception desk. Everyone was watching him, which made Yakido feel rather embarrassed. It seemed he had become somewhat famous among adventurers. The receptionist congratulated him. "You have achieved another great and glorious feat," he smiled awkwardly and replied, "Thank you." People whispered about him. "That is Yakido, the man known as the Volcano Crusher. I heard that he just saved more people from danger." Several teams approached to invite Yakido to join them. "Please honor us by joining our combat team." "No, joining my adventure party would be the better choice." He declined and hurried away. "I am very sorry, everyone, but I am still perfectly content with my current life." He thought to himself that he had no plans to form a combat organization. If he did, his search for the elixir of resurrection would become uncertain. The system's reward distribution mechanism for group battles had always been random. Moreover, items dropped for other players generally had much lower rarity rates. That was why. Even exceptional luck was not an all-powerful ability in every situation. Besides, throughout his miserable former life, he had always fought alone. So his current situation was nothing unfamiliar to him. He returned home at dusk. Yuku had prepared a lavish meal to welcome her son home. "Come on, my dear Yakido, eat as much as you like." Yakido obediently put his hands together and said, "Thank you, mother, for this delicious meal." Nozomi repeated the words, "Thank you too, mother, for this wonderful meal." Yakido sat down, picked up a bite, and put it into his mouth. It was a deeply familiar and nostalgic taste. "Our family has never missed an important anniversary, no matter how poor we were." Nozomi praised him. "Still, it is truly amazing and admirable that you are now strong enough to challenge the 20th floor of the dungeon." Yuku asked him, "But are you really sure you will be safe on such a dangerous journey, my son?" She showed him a video. I'm really worried too, Yakido. Look at this. Hasn't the success rate for clearing the 20th floor of the dungeon always been below 15%? The screen displayed an adventurer's news site. Extreme difficulty area, floor 20. Clear rate, less than 15%. Yuku reminded him, no electronic devices at the table, please. Yakido reassured them. Everything will be fine. Mom and Nozomi have both seen what I've accomplished so far, haven't you? She looked at the newspaper article about her son pinned to the wall. I'm truly happy and proud to see Yakido doing such admirable and noble things. But even so, I'm still worried. My son, never force yourself to take risks beyond what you can bear. No parent could ever be happy to helplessly watch their beloved child throw away his life for nothing. Yakido remembered the day she had died in his previous life. He answered gently, and no devoted child would ever want to watch their parents suffer through the agony of illness, either. Yuku was about to continue persuading him, but Nozomi comforted her instead. Mom, this is something he has to do. My brother is incredibly stubborn. Once he decides to do something, no one in the world can change his mind. Yakido reminded her of someone. Oh my, in that regard, you really are exactly like your late father. Yakido replied, please don't worry too much. I chose this difficult journey simply because I truly want to take it. Everyone felt more at ease and continued enjoying their family meal together. He remembered that, in his miserable previous life, he had been powerless to save his beloved mother. That cruel and heartbreaking truth remained lodged deep in his heart like a painful stake. To erase the painful memories of the past and truly begin a new chapter in this new life, I must obtain that elixir of resurrection, no matter what it takes. After the meal, he clasped his hands together and said, thank you for the delicious meal. Yakido resumed his journey into the dungeon, walking down the stairs. A notification appeared. Tokyo Dungeon, floor 20. Spatial transfer complete. Yakido charged toward the two monsters before him. They warily watched the newcomer. Yakido knew that every hideous monster that could appear on this floor was a mutated inorganic creature. He disposed of them with a single slash. He understood the danger here. These ruthless, heartless killers were a terrifying threat to the adventurers who came after him. A monster was pursuing him from behind. Yakido calmly maintained his pace. He knew their weakness. On the other hand, their thoughts and actions followed extremely rigid, predictable patterns. Yakido quickly eliminated the monster. Then he stopped at a certain spot. A boss stood ahead, staring at Yakido as its footsteps thundered against the ground. He already knew how to deal with it. I only need to accurately analyze and understand their patterns. The instant the monster raised its fist, Yakido successfully dodged. No matter how relentlessly it attacked, it could not touch him. The time to counterattack had come. Yakido swung his sword. He believed he could easily conquer and clear this perilous dungeon floor. His blade struck the monster squarely in the chest. As Yakido landed, its body crashed to the ground. He approached a sturdy gate. Yakido pushed the door open. Let's go. Today, I will personally change my fate. Inside was a vast, ancient stone arena. The door slammed shut behind Yakido. A magic circle flashed before him, revealing the massive form of a giant golem. Red light covered its body. Moss even grew across its body. Yakido knew he was facing a giant golem. It was the supreme boss that ruled the 20th floor of Dungeon 3. This enemy possessed an extremely tough body and terrifying offensive power. But that was all it had. For a boss monster, its movement speed was only mediocre at best. Yakido struck it with his first slash. He understood the principle. He only needed to patiently and steadily destroy each part of its body. Then, once the time was right, he could use all his strength to shatter its energy core, its fatal weakness, and claim victory. Kido was watching Yakido from nearby, smirking. Kido hid behind the door and watched him battle the giant golem. A magic circle began radiating red energy. Another monster was summoned beside it. This was beyond Yukido's expectations. What? A second boss monster appeared. He looked toward the sealed door behind him. That should be impossible. Someone had illegally entered the boss room, yet there was not a single person in sight. Still, it made sense. Interfering with a boss battle was forbidden. Not even the most foolish rookie would make such a stupid mistake and trigger a dangerous double boss raid, especially not in a place as dangerous as the 20th floor. Yakido glanced toward the sword flying at him. In other words, he swung his sword and knocked the weapon away. Yakido had confirmed that this terrible turn of events was not an accident. Kido gritted his teeth after his sneak attack failed. He concealed himself more carefully. So that bastard has finally noticed something is wrong. But my overwhelming advantage remains intact. That brat is nothing more than a fool. This supreme boss was never meant to be fought by one person alone. I checked the adventurer's information site. The giant golem on the 20th floor requires a party of at least 4 people. I deliberately entered the boss room after you to force a second boss to appear, all to kill you. And I don't have to worry about the monsters targeting me. My current class is a high-level thief, far superior to an ordinary warrior like you. With my advanced stealth skills, I can erase my presence completely. He activated Cat's footsteps and deliberately redirected the enemy's attention and hostility toward another target. After provoking the giant golem, Keto activated Phantom Shift. He was highly confident. I can make you bear every disaster and danger alone. Furthermore, today I brought a special treasure with me. The ultimate invisibility cloak, equipment that greatly reduces the ability of hostile entities to see and detect its wearer. With this divine item, you will never be able to see where I'm hiding. In truth, it was now a 3-against-1 deathmatch. The 2 giant golems attacked Yakido simultaneously. Keto poured liquid from a potion bottle over his sword. From my blind spot, I can launch deadly attacks against you at my leisure. He threw the broken sword toward Yakido. The blade flew toward Yakido from behind. Keto's plan was simple. I'll slowly force you into a corner. There's no need to rush. The broken sword grazed Yukito's cheek. A notification appeared, checking poison activation effect. Result: failed. Keto irritably changed positions. It failed again? Does that flimsy armor of his have some kind of poison resistance equipment? Whatever. That sword was only meant to distract him. He launched countless other concealed weapons. Keto even threw spherical devices. The true weapon I carefully prepared for you is this deadly trap system. Fighting alone has always been the safest and most reliable method for me. Rather than trusting useless and unreliable teammates, letting these dependable traps do their work is the wiser choice. He wrapped steel wire around 2 pillars. Electricity surged through the wires. Keto had prepared explosives as well, arranging multiple layers of interlocking traps. He threw explosives into the center. I'll completely restrict his movement. Kito smiled smugly. Then those giant boss monsters will take care of him for me. Countless traps lay behind Yakido. Keto leapt onto the wall and sat down to wait. Now I can simply sit back and enjoy the show. While fighting, Yakido shouted, "Hey!" Keto was startled by a sudden sense of danger. Yakido grinned mockingly. "Have you finally run out of your cheap little tricks?" Keto was shocked to see Yakido looking directly toward him. What? How could he possibly discover my well-hidden position? Yakido bent down and picked up a broken sword. "Come on, don't just stand there silently. Say something." He returned the weapon to its owner. "You follow me all this way because you admire me so much, didn't you?" Keto hurriedly dodged the flying blade. "Damn it, how can a bastard like you know exactly where I am?" Yakido revealed. "How do I know your location? It's a famous and familiar skill that practically everyone knows." Keto dismissed him. "Stop lying. How could such a pathetic low-level skill possibly work on a high-level thief like me?" Yakido sneered. "But what if I wasn't lying? Are you going to turn around and run in terror?" Keto was enraged by the provocation. "Don't underestimate me. I'm the one who holds the superior position here." The 2 began exchanging blows. Yakido swung his sword and sent the thief flying backward. Yakido smiled. In the end, only the one who survives has the right to say something so arrogant, doesn't he? Keto's body slammed into the ground. He could not believe it. "You're saying you found me with something as ordinary as warrior's intuition? What nonsense!" Yakido thought to himself, but I wasn't lying. Earlier, a notification had appeared, Warrior's Intuition activated. Warrior's Intuition was a skill capable of detecting hidden dangers in the surrounding environment. In reality, its activation rate was extremely low, a 99% failure rate, a normal success rate of only 0.9%, and a grand success rate of just 0.1%. However, with his extraordinarily high luck stat, those probabilities were meaningless. A system notification appeared, grand success. All dangers present on the battlefield have been successfully scanned and detected. Yakido had pinpointed his opponent's location. Keto charged at him once more. "You're quite fast for a warrior of your level." Yakido raised his sword, ready for round 2. "Oh, then I sincerely thank you for the compliment." Their gleaming blades collided. Kido said disdainfully. But you are still nothing more than a restricted warrior class fighter. My actual agility is far higher than yours. Naturally, my accuracy is as well. A cut sliced through Yukido's flesh. A notification appeared, checking paralysis effect. Result, successfully evaded. Kido said, I'll at least praise you for preparing countermeasures against debilitating status effects. Yakido positioned himself behind him, ready to strike. He put all his strength into this attack. Kido turned around, but he dodged the slash. You are still completely at a disadvantage. Yakido remained calm. Beast Sting Venom Strike. Kido laughed loudly as Yakido used Beast Sting Venom Strike. But Kido had a countermeasure. He activated Butterfly Dance. Butterflies flew toward Yakido, and as Yakido struck at Kido successfully retreated. Yakido was irritated. He actually dodged that dangerous attack so easily. Then Kido rushed forward again. When two opposing and mutually countering skills clashed, a guaranteed hit attack against a skill that ensured perfect evasion. The deciding factor was the actual attribute values held by both sides. A cut slashed across Yukido's thigh, drawing blood. Yakido had to step back, hissing in pain. Kido mocked him. A slow, restricted warrior like you will never be able to lay a hand on me. A red light above the giant golem's head locked onto its target, and a powerful force shot forth. Yakido lowered his head to dodge, and Kido avoided it as well. The situation on floor 20 is truly perfect and ideal, isn't it? He was currently being held back by the giant golem, while Kido had escaped its pursuit. The boss monster that rules this place always moves and acts according to predetermined patterns. Therefore, you can easily avoid its attacks without even needing to watch it with your eyes. You must have spent money to buy all that classified information from the Adventurers Guild, didn't you? Yakido calmly raised his sword to block. The two continued trading sword blows. Yakido gritted his teeth. You bastard. He glanced at the sharp hidden weapons beneath Kido's feet. Kido smugly said, There's no way for you to escape my inescapable trap network. By now, you must have realized the problem, right? There are supposedly no changes or abnormalities anywhere on floor 20. My glorious victory was already decided from the very beginning, during the preparation stage. Activating the skill, Cliff Scorpion Divine Strike, Kido attacked. Yakido tried to block it, but the blow struck the hand holding his sword. His arm fell limp, and his back slammed into the wall behind him. Yakido grimaced in pain. His sword fell to the ground with a piercing clang. Yakido's face darkened. Kido charged forward excitedly. It's finally time for me to end your life, Yakido. You have nowhere left to run. Prepare yourself to die, he declared as his twin swords came flying toward him. Then Yakido's expression changed. I was only joking with you. He pressed a tile behind him. A sphere activated and trapped Kido inside. He was stunned. What? Isn't this an extremely dangerous gravity trap? Yakido said, You just confidently claimed that there were no abnormalities here. But the truth is, there is one enormous variable right here. Isn't that right? Kido realized that the muscles around his mouth had suddenly frozen, making it impossible to move normally. He struggled to speak. What the hell is happening? What do you mean? All the classified tactical information we obtained only applies under normal circumstances. No one could have predicted that an idiot would jump in and interfere with a boss battle. Kido finally understood. In other words, a giant golem's fist was about to come down. Yakido quickly dodged and continued. With an unexpected and dangerous double ambush, the boss room's actual layout has completely changed. Even though you call yourself a high-ranking thief, you can't even detect the placement of the traps around you. Kido shouted indignantly, Don't mock and underestimate me. Someone like you may be a warrior-class adventurer, but he fell silent as the giant golem's fist struck him squarely in the face. Kido's body was hurled into the wall behind him. He weakly muttered, How can something this absurd happen? The two giant golems locked onto him. Their stone fists came crashing down. A loud boom resounded as the ground cracked apart. Kido could not accept it. Even my specialized top-tier detection and scouting skills couldn't discover it. This is clearly a top-grade treasure. A trap concealed so perfectly. Just what the hell are you? Yakido replied. As I told you before, it's all thanks to a warrior's intuition. I kept telling you that from the start, didn't I? Kido was so badly injured that he spat blood. Yakido reminded him, Just lie there quietly. If you're still alive after I kill that boss monster myself, I'll hand you over to the police. Yakido faced the two giant golems alone. Yakido snarled, "Don't you dare mock me." Yakido sensed danger and abruptly turned around. Kido shouted, "Since things have come to this, I swear I'll drag you down to hell with me." He pulled out numerous explosive charges. Kido's upper body was wrapped in explosives. "These are nothing like that cheap trash you stole earlier." Yakido shouted, "Have you completely lost your mind?" Kido prepared to tap his screen. His finger pressed the button. A violente explosion érupted. Heat blasted toward Yukido's face. He used his sword to block some of the shockwave as the ground beneath them began to crack. Everything began collapsing. Chunks of rock continuously fell, and even Yakido dropped through the floor. His body crashed into the darkness below. Yakido ached all over as he looked upward. The drop was far too great. "I can't get back up right away. I never expected there to be such a dangerous hidden room here." A giant golem fell from above as well, its enormous body descending toward the ground. A heavy crash rang out. Yakido was in a critical situation. "I'm completely trapped here now." Suddenly, a golden light shone toward him. He saw a treasure chest. "What is this?" Yukido's luck struck again when he discovered the chest. He understood. A tightly concealed hidden room would normally contain priceless treasures worthy of strict protection. But this room was far too small and cramped. Yakido was surrounded by two giant golems, with no space at all for him to use evasive skills. "I can't defeat two boss monsters at once through a normal battle of attrition. At this critical moment, I have no choice but to gamble everything on that treasure chest." Yakido tried to slip between the giant golem's legs and run toward the chest. Its two fists came down. Yakido narrowly escaped death, but the old wound in his leg flared with pain. Yakido leaped off the giant golem's body, then slowly slid downward. The treasure chest was very close. The giant golem behind him fired a blast of energy, while the other one also locked onto him. Power surged toward his back as the giant golem threw its fist. Yakido threw his sword ahead and braced himself against a corner of the wall. He exhaled in relief. "Everything is still fine. Fortunately, my spine hasn't been crushed or broken." His face was covered in cuts, but his gaze remained resolute. Yakido stood and prepared to face the giant golems again. He sensed danger behind him, but his body was struck down. Yakido cried out in pain. His lower body was covered in blood. Yakido's breathing was ragged. He was exhausted. Yakido clenched his fist. "I will never give up so easily. This intense pain running through my body is enough to make me vomit." He was so close to the treasure chest, but what did that matter? Another attack came from behind. Yakido's eyes rolled back from the pain as he vomited blood. Still, he refused to give up. Compared to the utter despair of being a worthless failure for 75 long days. In his previous life, these minor injuries were nothing. Yakido crawled toward the treasure chest, shouting, "I wouldn't even call this suffering." Yakido finally touched the blood-stained treasure chest. An item appeared, a bracelet. Seeing it, Yakido smiled faintly. A symbol appeared on the bracelet's stone surface. A giant golem had reached his back. The other giant golem was gathering energy. Yakido touched the item, just as I always thought. Yakido put it on his wrist. "I have the ability and the qualities needed to change this fate." The item was a spatial teleportation bracelet. He rejoiced inwardly. An instant teleportation bracelet, a rare rank 5 treasure that allows its owner to freely move to any location they desire. "It's the perfect piece of equipment for my current predicament." The system asked, "Would you like to activate the spatial teleportation bracelet now? Yes or no?" Behind Yakido, the giant golems repeatedly pounded the floor. System danger warning. Your current class is completely incompatible with this magical item. Activation success rate severely reduced, -50%. One giant golem raised its hand. Updated system warning. Your mana stat is below the required threshold to use this item. Activation success rate further reduced, -35%. Its fist was about to strike Yakido. The total success rate was only 15%. The system began calculating and verifying. Rings of light appeared on Yukido's bracelet, and a teleportation portal formed. The instant the giant golem's fist came down, Yakido vanished. The bracelet activated just in time. Updated notification. Spatial teleportation successful. Yakido teleported behind the giant golem and slashed at the magic core inside its body. Yakido swore, that he would claim the final glorious victory no matter what. The other giant golem sensed his location and turned toward him. It fired energy at Yakido, but he had already teleported away. Yakido thought, "You really are incredibly tough. Even after taking enormous damage from that terrible explosion, you still haven't fallen. But that only makes this better." Spatial teleportation successful. He continued targeting its magic core. He prepared to thrust his sword into it. I'm already used to repeating the same tedious action over and over. Suddenly, Yukido's body fell backward. As the giant golem stood, he dropped beneath it. The other giant golem charged toward him with thunderous steps. It threw a punch with its enormous hands. The system began calculating and verifying. Yakido vanished before its eyes, then reappeared behind the giant golem's head and swung his sword down. The moment the giant golem turned around, he teleported behind the other one. Yakido told himself, "No matter how many times I have to endure and repeat this." His sword pierced the magic core. He thrust his sword down with even greater determination, breaking the outer layer of protection. "I will never give up so easily." Its body crashed to the ground. This time, Yakido slashed through the giant golem's midsection, then teleported behind the other one. Cracks had appeared across the surface of the magic core inside it. Yakido relentlessly continued cutting. The purple magic core cracked further as countless sword strikes were unleashed. After countless spatial teleports, both of the giant golem's targeting devices aimed in the same direction. Yakido floated directly before them. Instead of helplessly praying for a lucky 6 to appear on the die of fate, I'll keep rolling that die until it finally lands on 6. As their cannons glowed red, Yakido positioned himself between them. Their fists were about to crush Yakido's head when he activated the teleportation bracelet. His figure gradually disappeared. "That is how I do things." The two giant golems' fists slammed into each other with a thunderous impact. The purple magic core cracked further. Yakido teleported elsewhere, appearing right behind one of the giant golems. Yakido thrust the tip of his sword straight into its magic core. Purple fragments scattered everywhere. Yakido thought, facing a massive, mindless giant golem head-on. He vanished right before it. Yakido appeared on top of its head and activated explosive heavy strike. He believed that his unwavering fighting spirit and iron resolve would never be defeated or broken. His target was its cannon. A powerful slash came down, scattering purple fragments through the air. Yakido was beginning to tire, his face smeared with blood. The giant golem was gradually disintegrating. Yakido's body floated in the air, about to collapse. A red notification appeared. System danger warning. The item's usage limit has reached its maximum. Please recharge it before continuing use. Yakido fell to the ground, while the giant golem vanished without a trace. Notification. Adventurer Yakido has successfully defeated the supreme boss monster, the giant golem. Adventurer Yakido has successfully defeated the second supreme boss monster, the giant golem. Player Yakido has obtained a supreme legendary rank L item, the Elixir of Resurrection, Alicia. Light from the item fell over Yakido's face. 2 floating potion bottles appeared. Yakido was delighted to see them. Yakido took one bottle, pried off its cap with his mouth, and drank it to restore his energy. The moment he finished drinking, Yakido felt something strange, a surge of energy filling his body. The wounds on his leg healed. Yakido looked at his hand, where a wound had also healed. He fell back onto the ground in satisfaction as light shone down into the darkness. Yakido gazed at that light, holding the remaining potion. Somehow, I managed to survive. Notification. Congratulations. You have successfully fulfilled the hidden special conditions. The system began awarding Yakido honorary titles. Title: Great Survivor. Reward: Vitality plus 10. Title: Lone Slayer of the Twin Giants. Reward: Strength plus 20. Title: Supreme Enforcer of Justice. Reward: Dexterity plus 10. Yakido placed the precious potion into his inventory. He looked with satisfaction at what he had shed blood to obtain. Yakido looked upward. Then he gathered his strength and launched himself upward. Yakido used the walls for leverage, jumping toward the opening above. At last, he successfully landed. A corner of Kido's blood-soaked clothing lay in one corner. Only then did Yakido remember that name. All that remained here was a blood-stained cloak. He wondered whether this alone would be enough damning evidence to expose all of Kido's disgusting crimes. Yakido picked up the cloak and walked toward the door. He placed his hand on it, ready to push it open. Light from outside fell across his face as the two large doors gradually opened. Yakido returned to the Adventurers Guild Hall. As soon as he successfully made it back to the surface, he immediately reported the horrifying events to the guild. The receptionist was terrified when she saw the blood-stained cloak. Yakido thought that, judging by the situation, he had just accomplished something tremendously significant. The receptionist said, "I will immediately contact a senior official and ask them to come speak with you directly." Yakido predicted that this was about to cause an enormous uproar throughout the adventuring world. Someone came to see him. "Our guild sincerely hopes to arrange an exclusive interview with you for publicity and media coverage." Yakido clenched the vial in his hand, but at this moment, he had no time to concern himself with such matters. He refused them. "I am terribly sorry, everyone, but I have an extremely urgent matter to attend to. Could we please reschedule this appointment for another day?" Yakido hurried home without stopping. His only goal now was to bring the elixir of resurrection back to his mother as quickly as possible. Many people noticed him along the way. "Look over there. Isn't that Yakido, the man who has been all over the news lately?" A giant LED screen on the street was broadcasting breaking news. A new record for the fastest clear in history of Floor 20 of Tokyo Dungeon. He single-handedly defeated both supreme boss monsters at once. Yakido paid no attention to it. He had to act as quickly as possible. Yakido stopped in front of his home, went upstairs, and turned the doorknob. Yuku and Nozomi happily welcomed him home safely. Yakido held up the vial for them to see. "I did it. I'm back." Yuku was taken to the hospital for another examination. The doctor announced that the final results of the detailed tests had arrived. The two siblings waited anxiously for him to speak. To get straight to the point, the terrible illness that has tormented Mrs. Yuku all this time has now been completely cured. Yakido happily asked, "Is what you just said really true, doctor?" The doctor confirmed it. "Yes. The restorative power of that legendary elixir of resurrection is truly miraculous, beyond human imagination." Nozomi embraced her mother. "Mom, this is wonderful. I'm so happy and relieved." Yuku held Yukido's hand. "All of these miracles happened thanks to Yukido's hard work and sacrifice for our family. Thank you so much, my devoted son." Yakido fell silent for a moment before replying, "Mom, thank you too for always loving, protecting, and raising Nozomi and me all these years." He was deeply moved. At last, he had the chance to say those sacred words himself. This was the heartfelt wish he had longed to express for so long. Nozomi teased him, "Oh, come on, brother. We're still standing right in front of the department head. Whatever you want to say, can't the two of us go home and say it properly there?" Embarrassed, Yakido replied, "You're right, little sister. I was careless." She wiped away her tears. To be honest, that was true. Sometimes her older brother got so caught up in his own thoughts that he failed to notice what was happening around him. Their happy family was being watched through a window. The observer said, "Seeing such a warm, loving, close-knit family makes this all the more heartbreaking and regrettable. They're destined to have their happiness stolen away and be driven into tragedy. The only consolation for this plan is that this is a large general hospital. Our medical team did everything within our professional ability, yet we were still unable to save them. The families of the deceased that will likely accept that cruel reality and simply give up. The cause of death will be ruled as sudden cardiac arrest." He suddenly appeared and threw a punch at Nozomi. A brilliant flash streaked through the air. Yakido swiftly blocked him with his sword. "I didn't expect your reaction to be so quick." Yakido shouted at him, "You damned bastard. What the hell are you plotting here?" The man was surprised. "This is very strange. Why are you still able to move freely in this space?" Yakido sternly demanded, "Answer my question now." Yakido noticed him. "Wait, that familiar face. Are you that legendary hero? The revered hero, the adventurer with the greatest power in the world, the eternal #1 on the global adventurer rankings, and humanity's great savior." The man confirmed it. "That is correct. I am Cosmo Rito Ozama, representative of supreme cosmic justice. My esteemed profession is hero, a title I have earned legitimately." Yakido asked in confusion, "Why? Why would a great hero who represents justice try to harm Nozomi?" He replied, "Hey kid, shouldn't I be the one asking questions right now?" Within this inviolable void barrier, only those who have personally experienced the horrific death of their soul can move freely. Therefore, there's only one logical conclusion. He exposed Yukido's secret. You too possess the ability to turn back time and be reborn in the past, don't you? Yakido deduced. Then the phrase second time means that you are also living your second life after reincarnation, isn't it? Ozama openly admitted, yes, that's right. If you're someone who has returned from death like I have, then this matter becomes much easier to resolve. I'm doing everything in my power to eliminate every risk that could lead to this world's destruction. Yakido turned to look at Nozomi. But what does my innocent little sister have to do with the destruction of the world? He revealed she is one of its central causes. The harmful influence she will have on her future husband is precisely the threat that concerns me. Yakido was shocked. Nozomi's destined future husband? Ozama confirmed, that's him. He is a person of immense importance to the survival of this world. In all our previous lives, the collapse of his marriage to your sister dealt a devastating blow to his mind. That terrible change in him ultimately became one of the deep-rooted causes of the world's destruction. Therefore, I must eliminate your sister before that dark future has the chance to become reality. Do my explanations make sense to you now? Yakido argued, everything that happened in the previous life and what is happening in this life are completely different. Ozama gave an interested exclamation, allowing Yakido to continue. Yakido pointed at Yuku. Open your eyes and look carefully. The terrible illness that tormented my mother has now been completely cured. Because of that, Nozomi will no longer need to work in the complicated nightlife entertainment industry just to earn money for mom's medical bills. Naturally, the two of them will never have the chance to meet, and she will never cross paths with that man. So there is absolutely no valid reason for you to take Nozomi's life now, Ozama calmly said. Perhaps your argument is correct, but instead of placing my faith in empty promises from you, killing her here and now would provide a far more certain and reassuring result, wouldn't it? Yakido declared firmly, Nozomi will never die before I do. That will never happen. He replied, this is quite a troublesome situation. I truly do not wish to kill you if there is any way to avoid it. After all, my purpose has always been to save people. I want to keep casualties to an absolute minimum. Yakido said, if that is truly what you believe, then get out of here now. Ozama continued, it is not as simple as you think. I understand that, which is why you must fight me with everything you have right now and prove the true extent of your power. Yakido could not understand how things had come to this. Ozama rested his sword on his shoulder. I merely wish to verify whether you are truly someone extraordinary, whether you are worth a hero like me taking such a dangerous gamble on. Yakido mocked him. That lofty, arrogant way of looking down on others certainly suits a legendary hero like you. Ozama unexpectedly smiled. I suppose it does. He revealed his status screen. Every stat had reached 3,000 points. I apologize for displaying that attitude toward you. Yakido was stunned. Yakido stared at the numbers on the screen. The stats were absurdly high. Ozama slowly approached. But the truth is, I stand at the very pinnacle of this world. Therefore, this obvious reality is... As he faced Yakido, the gap between their powers was simply enormous. There is nothing for you to suffer or agonize over. This is merely the simple law of this world. If you do not possess sufficient power, you will never be qualified to protect anything, much less protect this great world. Therefore, make your choice now. Either helplessly watch your beloved sister die, or stake your entire life in battle against me. Ozama's blazing aura surged toward Yakido. Yakido wondered what he should do in this desperate situation. Should he activate the spatial teleportation bracelet and flee with both of them? No, running away now would be useless. He would never be able to protect Nozomi completely if he had to watch over her 24 hours a day. Yakido let out a breath and said, fine, I accept. I'll fight you with everything I have. Ozama smiled. That's more like it. Now we can have a serious conversation. But you need not worry too much. I will never demand that you defeat me. The Void Barrier's countdown activated. The barrier would remain in existence for 10 minutes. All you need to do is find a way to survive until you leave it. Yakido curiously asked, are we really going to fight here? Ozama denied it. Absolutely not. Ozama climbed onto the windowsill. I cannot allow this battle to destroy the hospital. He moved first. Let us shift this battle to a more suitable location. Yakido approached the window and looked down in the direction Ozama had gone. Then he turned back to look at his sister. Yakido vowed to protect Nozomi's life at all costs. Then he followed Ozama, no matter what price he had to pay. There was a spacious courtyard beneath the hospital. Ozama said, "This deserted place is ideal for us to fight freely." Yakido replied, "Please go easy on me." Ozama agreed. "Very well, then let us begin our warm-up with a little power like this." He lightly snapped his fingers. Countless spells appeared behind Ozama, all aimed at Yakido. He shouted, "That attack is way beyond what should count as a basic lesson." Yakido swung his sword and shattered the incoming attacks. "And you can cast them so easily without even chanting a spell." Ozama denied it. "No, that is not the case. He created duplicates of himself. This modest power is nothing especially remarkable. You should be more than familiar with battles at this level." Yakido was inwardly astonished. They could multiply themselves automatically into so many copies? Ozama continued, "Being surrounded by an enemy legion before you can even understand what is happening is a commonplace occurrence on the dungeon battlefield, is it not?" Yakido furiously cursed. "Like hell it is." Yakido selected an item from his inventory and activated 2 substitute dolls. When Ozama rushed forward, Yakido hastily blocked him. The force of the clash was so powerful that both were forced backward. Ozama mocked him. "Substitute dolls? You truly are someone who always prepares thoroughly before heading into battle. Remember this. You will never achieve a glorious victory if you keep choosing such a passive, defensive style." Yakido understood what he meant. Yes, a giant flame gathered above Yakido's head as he pulled out a staff. "Of course, I understand that perfectly well. The ability to use multiple magical items and treasures at the same time is indeed an incredibly convenient and powerful advantage." Ozama looked up at the incoming fireball. A violent explosion erupted, and the heat spread outward. Yakido understood. He had never entertained the illusion that this much equipment would be enough to defeat a supreme being like him. Still, the other man spoke. "I understand everything now. So that is the unique reincarnation privilege bestowed upon you, isn't it? The special gift fate granted you alone is this supreme void barrier. And the supreme power you hold in your hands is none other than extraordinary luck." Yakido thought to himself. In reality, he had only barely managed to defeat one of Ozama's false clones. Yakido asked in return, "So you have the ability to see through everything, is that right?" He answered, "More or less. Based on all of your recent remarkable accomplishments, it has become painfully obvious." Yakido sneered. "Is a lowly, ordinary person like me, who can only rely on a luck stat, nothing more than a joke for you to ridicule?" Ozama replied with interest. "Well, from my own perspective, extraordinary luck can be considered part of an outstanding adventurer's actual ability. However, this world is full of difficult problems that can never be solved through luck alone. And right now, I am precisely the kind of solid, invincible obstacle standing in your way. From fire magic to the ice blue summoned spirit, to the green spirit representing plant life, Ozama had 4 guardian spirits at his side." Yakido understood. That was right. Luck alone would never let someone obtain everything they wanted so easily. He quietly analyzed the situation. Yet at this moment, there was only one fatal weakness he could exploit against this legendary hero. It was the status panel he had glimpsed on Ozama's body earlier. Ozama's own luck stat was extremely low. Yakido never wanted to do anything disgraceful, anything he would be ashamed to tell his beloved family. But in this life-or-death situation, he no longer had the luxury of choosing his methods. It was astonishing that his mind held no hesitation or distraction at all. That was right. Long ago, he had made an ironclad resolve and sworn to do anything, no matter how cruel, to protect his family's peace. He had made that fateful decision a very, very long time ago. Ozama unleashed a combination attack. "It is time for me to accelerate and raise this battle to an entirely new level, because of how cruel and unforgiving this world is." A blast of fire shot toward Yakido. Ozama shouted, "It will never stop at such a trivial challenge." The fire spirit launched a blazing punch. The water spirit fired a water-based attack. Yakido waited. His plan was to make thorough use of Ozama's terrible luck stat against him. Yakido pressed his finger against the spatial teleportation bracelet in his inventory, and it appeared on his wrist. Yakido had sworn to twist fate with his own hands and pull this inevitable victory toward himself. A series of system notifications appeared. The system began calculating and verifying the probability as the two forces rushed toward him. A notification appeared. Spatial teleportation successful. Yakido's eyes gleamed with determination. Yakido vanished just before the fire and water attacks collided with him. The entire space turned dim, and everything stood still. Yakido teleported elsewhere. Ozama asked with interest. Those spatial teleportation bracelets really are quite convenient, aren't they? But for me, flight magic alone is more than enough. Spending resources to recharge such an item seems rather impractical. Yakido reminded him, "My apologies, but we are in a battle to the death here. If you intend to test my practical combat ability, then today I have decided to test yours as well. If you truly are a hero who represents justice, then you would never allow innocent civilians to be in danger by this battle. Isn't that right?" Ozama realized why Yakido had mixed into the crowd. "So this is the strategy you carefully planned. How interesting. I am a hero who fights for justice. That is undeniably true. I was born and exist for one purpose only, to protect humanity. I will never harm them." He snapped his fingers. "That is why destructive large-scale magic has become much more difficult for me to use freely." The two spirits behind Ozama disappeared. He drew a sword from thin air. "Even swinging my sword around here has begun to pose unpredictable dangers to everyone. But those obstacles, countless sword projectiles shot out from behind Ozama, do not even qualify as a handicap for me." Yakido stored his sword away. "We will have to wait and see how this battle unfolds." He pulled out a shield. "I have to admit, you have slightly increased your chances of survival." A shield appeared in Yakido's hand. Ozama continued, "But I have always been more than accustomed to dealing with troublesome situations like this." The attacks flew toward Yakido. "In my former life, I fought and eliminated countless cunning enemies who used innocent civilians as human shields." Yakido blocked the attacks with his shield while teleporting away from where he stood. He weaved through the pedestrians as an arrow pursued him. He managed to block it with his shield, and the arrow ricocheted backward. It ruptured a roadside water pipe, sending water gushing out. Ozama calmly approached. From grotesque monsters capable of disguising themselves as humans. He placed his hand on the ground, and a magic formation appeared. To wandering criminals desperately trying to turn an entire peaceful town into an illegal criminal stronghold. Countless stone spikes rose from the ground and pierced toward Yakido. Such disasters will only become more frequent as the world draws closer to total destruction. Yakido was surprised. "So that is what happened in the past. In my former life, I seem to have spent almost all my time blindly delving into dark dungeons. To me, the world above ground was little more than a temporary place to find food. That is why I do not have many strong memories of it." Ozama remarked, "That is truly regrettable. I had hoped that reincarnated returnees like us could sit down together and exchange stories from our old battlefield days." Yakido slid beneath a car to dodge the attack. "I have no stories worth telling you. In my terrible former life, I was basically nothing more than a pathetic person crawling helplessly on the ground." Ozama swept his leg beneath the car. "That is all the more reason you should learn to enjoy the vast open sky in this entirely new life." Yakido was fortunate enough to block the attack with his shield, but the force was so powerful that he was sent flying into a wall. Yakido forced himself back to his feet. "But I'm the kind of person who feels calmer and more at peace in cramped, confined spaces," Ozama said disdainfully. "I have no intention of wasting time searching for someone with such cowardly, timid thinking." Yakido replied, "Even if you cruelly criticize me like that." Yakido took out a skateboard, greatly increasing his speed. "I cannot change who I am or the nature I was born with." Ozama was surprised. "You still intend to keep running away?" "I'm starting to grow very bored with this tedious game of chase. I demanded that you prove your hidden potential to me. Remember that well. I have no interest in wasting time on a coward who only knows how to turn and run." A barrage of intertwined attacks slashed toward him. Yakido sneered, "Is that really so, sir?" Ozama closed in. "Yes. If this is all you can do, then our trial battle can officially end right here." Yakido's expression turned serious. He glanced at an electrical pole beside him. Yakido said, "I understand now. If things have reached this point, then allow me to..." Before he could finish, Yakido spun around and kicked the pole. Ozama looked at him in confusion as the utility pole began to topple. Yakido declared, "Begin my counterattack." The pole continued falling. Ozama was startled. "Oh, are you serious?" He noticed that someone was inside the car behind him and shouted, "Get out of the way." Yakido reminded him, "Avoiding the attack is not a good choice for you right now." Ozama caught the utility pole with one hand. Yakido clapped in praise, just as one would expect from a great hero. "You truly are kind. You would never heartlessly abandon innocent civilians to danger, would you?" Ozama set the pole down. "That is merely part of my everyday work. Still, I admit that your move caught me somewhat by surprise." Yakido smiled. "Is that so? Then you should do your best to protect every last one of them. Do not miss even a single person." The overhead power lines exploded. Yakido declared, "A devastating explosion has just been triggered." Ozama's expression darkened as he glared in that direction. The short-circuited electrical wires were leaking electricity, while the broken water pipe from earlier sprayed water onto them. The current spread through the water pipe. A violent explosion erupted right before Ozama's eyes. He shouted in shock. An explosion! A huge fire began spreading. Ozama summoned the water spirit. Undine extinguished that raging fire immediately. A stream of water shot down onto the blazing flames. Yakido stood aside and watched. That little water is nowhere near enough to control this fire. Just as he said, the flames continued spreading. They spread to the cars and roadside trees. The ground cracked from the intense heat. A massive sinkhole opened up, with several cars teetering at its edge. Ozama shouted, "What the hell is happening?" He formed a plan. "If things have truly come to this, then I will summon both Sylph and Gnome. Fine. Today, I will give you everything I have." One spirit carried civilians away from the collapsing area, while another used its power to hold up a car that was about to fall into the hole. The vehicles and civilians were temporarily moved out of danger. Yakido calmly walked toward them. "Hey, you have not forgotten about a lowly person like me, standing right here, have you?" Ozama had no time to pay attention to Yakido. At the moment, he was extremely busy saving the innocent people around him. "What kind of long-range attack could someone like you possibly have that could reach me?" "From the very beginning," Yakido replied, "perhaps I do not have the power to inflict any real damage on your powerful body." He teleported behind his opponent and slammed his shield into Ozama's back. "But I still have more than enough ability to keep harassing you." Ozama's face went pale with pain. "Wait," his body staggered, nearly falling over. Yakido reminded him, "There's been a long-standing buildup of foul wastewater beneath this area. You should try experiencing it for yourself sometime." Yakido swung his sword, preventing Ozama from grabbing the roadside ledge. "Try tasting what it feels like for a powerless weakling to be forced to drink filthy mud water." Ozama involuntarily fell into the foul water, which splashed upward on impact. Yakido stood above, looking down at the legendary hero bathing in sewage. "You know, while we are at it, let me inform you of something." He took out his staff. "I still possess many protective treasures like this." Ozama raised both hands in surrender. "That is enough. Fine y concede. I surrender. Today's battle is my defeat at your hands." The area before the hospital had become a pile of ruins. As they calmly spoke together, Ozama began, "I must admit the harsh truth. My luck stat is extremely terrible, and I've always been caught up in one unfortunate accident after another. And now I fully understand your scheme. You deliberately lured out my attacks in order to trigger those dangerous accidents on your own terms, exactly as you had planned. But even so, seeing so many unfortunate accidents occur one after another by such coincidence is truly bizarre and abnormal. You bastard. You must remember with incredible accuracy all the places where those terrible accidents occurred in your previous life, don't you?" Yakido admitted that it was more or less true. He remembered where that explosion had happened in his previous life. Flowers and memorial food offerings had been placed at the base of an electric pole. Back then, Yakido had put his hands together and prayed. Then he ate those offerings. In the end, even the painful and miserable memories accumulated throughout his awful previous life could occasionally prove immensely useful at critical moments like this. Yakido said, "More importantly, haven't I sufficiently demonstrated my abilities to you? The tremendous hidden potential you keep talking about. I must ask you to stay by my side and continue accompanying me for just a little longer. Anyway, this supreme void barrier is about to run out of energy and disappear completely. And at the moment, I'm the only person capable of handling all the chaos and aftermath here, right? Therefore, you will inevitably have to return to that general hospital as soon as possible to help deal with the catastrophic curse contamination there. I'll be relying entirely on you for this important task. Yakido was startled. A catastrophic curse contamination? That terrible incident at the hospital. You're a reincarnator too, so naturally you should know all about it, shouldn't you? Ozama maintained his casual smile. Come on, don't joke about something like that. I really don't know anything. Yakido said awkwardly. Almost my entire previous life was spent trapped in dark dungeons. For 75 years, all I did was fight monsters and slimes. So that means you have no preparations or countermeasures for this curse contamination disaster, correct? Ozama was even more speechless. I knew it. Honestly, how frustrating. But there's no time to explain everything now. The void barrier is about to disappear. Hurry to the hospital morgue. Once you get there, you'll understand roughly what's going on. Yakido interrupted him. Hold on. You can't just dump something this insane on me out of nowhere. If you just stand by and do nothing, a lot of people will die. When Ozama vanished into the void, Yakido shouted after him, Wait, no matter what's going on, I have to go back to that hospital. He activated his spatial teleportation bracelet, and Yakido vanished from the street. The streets returned to how they had been before. The hospital returned to normal as well. Inside the examination room, the doctor said, From now on, you only need to come in for regular checkups as scheduled. Yakido closed his eyes in thought and glanced at his two family members. Yakido knew he did not have time to explain everything to them. Even he himself had no idea what exactly was happening right now. He opened the door, preparing to leave. Yakido thought that the only thing he knew for certain was that the hospital was in grave danger. I need to get them away from here as soon as possible. Yuku replied, Then we'll gladly accept your kind offer. Watching them leave, Yakido thought, I wonder if she's looking forward to this meal as much as I am. He entered the men's restroom and took out an invisibility cloak. Yakido had acquired it as loot from his monster hunts. Until now, he had only used it to drive away minor monsters. But he had never imagined that one day he would have to use it like some sneaking criminal. Even if it was unavoidable, he did not like this at all. As he slipped past, the door opened by itself. A ghost. The elevator was moving up to the 4th floor. He thought about the curse contamination disaster. That name sounds vaguely familiar. Or maybe I've never heard it before. He stepped out of the elevator into a gloomy corridor. Yakido walked forward, recalling Ozama's words. This place is far too silent. Is there really a catastrophe-level danger lurking down here, like he said? Either way, I'd better stay on maximum alert. Yakido stared at a door. This is the place, the morgue. The temperature inside dropped. Yakido glanced at the bodies lying on the beds. He muttered, For all I know, I might be lying in this room myself tomorrow. His vigilant eyes swept across the room. Yakido lowered the hood of his cloak. Still, nothing happened. He let out a sigh. Don't tell me that bastard set me up. A red light radiated from one of the beds. A patient's body twisted unnaturally. The person's face looked utterly evil. They transformed into twisting, walking corpses. Roars echoed through the room. Their skin was pale, and their blank white eyes were lifeless. They slowly advanced toward him. Yakido covered his nose. Come to think of it, around this point in my previous life, the top-ranked adventurers had only just begun entering unexplored dungeon floors. One of them prepared to pounce on him. Yakido remained alert. If these bodies were not properly buried and were left unattended for a certain period of time, they would become cursed corpses, zombies. Yakido discovered that this curse had another disastrous trait. It could spread from corpse to corpse. In his previous life, they had thoroughly dealt with these creatures by following a strict 3-step burial and soul-soothing procedure. But in this life, that system had not yet been introduced. Even so, under normal circumstances, curses like this could not spread to people who were still alive, as long as you don't get bitten by the zombies. The bed blocked the zombie's path. As long as you act carefully and stay cautious, you should be perfectly safe. He swung his sword while pushing a bed forward. The zombies were trapped between the beds. Yakido moved forward and shoved another bed. His hand touched the wall as he formulated a plan. I'll definitely thin out their numbers. Yakido looked at the tag around one zombie's neck. The doors of the more drawers behind him rattled. Just as he prepared to swing his sword at a creature lying face down, Yakido steadied himself. This is not a monster. He noticed her clothing. Yakido realized that she was a funeral home worker who had come to collect and handle the bodies. There was nothing he could do for corpses that had already completely transformed into zombies. But if she was still alive and had only recently been afflicted by the curse, she could still be saved and treated. Besides, the barricade over there would not hold much longer. Logically speaking, he should simply turn a blind eye to her. It would be more reasonable to focus entirely on reducing the number of zombies in front of him. He put on his spatial teleportation bracelet. The vortex on its surface appeared. He teleported to a store. Yakido pointed to another item. I'll take that too. Leaves from the world tree, holy water. And finally, the fresh blood of the person who will drink this medicine. Yakido told her, all right, try to lie still and don't struggle around. Yakido took out a potion bottle and mixed the medicine using her blood. Yakido sat in a corner, carefully measuring everything. He added the final ingredient. I'm counting on this. Purifying holy water elixir. A bottle of holy medicine appeared. Yakido rejoiced. Yakido poured the holy medicine into her mouth. Golden energy spread around her body. Her skin returned to normal. He sighed in relief. After settling her down, he picked up the sword from the floor. There was not a sound from behind the barricade of beds. Yakido's eyes filled with shock. Before him was a bloody sight. Numerous zombies had fused together. Their flesh formed a dark mass, and their eyes turned red. A huge mouth full of sharp teeth emerged, drool dripping onto the floor. It roared, its sound amplified throughout the room. The beds were immediately blown away, and Yakido could barely remain standing. Yakido was stunned. So that damned curse had condensed on its own and evolved into an entirely new stage. Staring at the many-headed monster, Yakido wondered if this was the price he had to pay for saving someone. He immediately thought of Ozama. If that hero saw him struggling so desperately like this, he would probably just snort and laugh in his face. Yakido did not want to dwell on it. Whatever. He had no regrets about that decision. The fused monster lashed out with long tentacles. They whipped toward Yakido. He swiftly ducked beneath them, then swung his sword and severed one of the creature's heads. Yakido knew the most fundamental rule for defeating these zombie corpses: completely destroy their heads. Another tentacle moved, and he promptly leaned aside to evade it. Yakido swung his sword and cut off another head. Seeing how many heads the monster still had left, he felt that the situation had become far more dangerous and difficult. Two tentacles lunged toward him again. Yakido cut them apart first, and fluid poured from the severed appendages. Yakido disposed of another head. Yet he thought the task before him had not changed at all. He could only persist and cut off each head one by one. He told himself to deal with them one at a time and not let even a single one escape. As long as he smashed every last head to pieces, that would be the end of it. Yakido finally severed the last head. At that moment, the monster was reduced to nothing but a bloated body. He walked up to it. All right, that should mean I've completely cleaned up everything in this room. Then something happened that shocked Yakido. The monster was moving. Its neck lifted, and another head grew out immediately. He frowned. You got to be kidding me. What the hell is this? This time, countless tentacles shot out. They wrapped around the headless corpses and slowly fed them into its gaping mouth. It quickly swallowed its prey whole, and more heads began growing back. Yakido grew tense. It was regenerating its body parts. Seriously? You're already a zombie, so could you please just rot away quietly like a good little corpse? In any case, if he wanted to completely bring down and kill this abomination, he had no choice but to destroy its heads faster than it could regenerate. He had to destroy them all at once. But what skills did he have? Thrusting attacks, a stinger-like piercing strike, a charged heavy blow, or a shield bash to knock enemies away. Most skills in the warrior class were designed for one-on-one combat. In other words, he did not have a single skill capable of dealing area of effect damage. Although he had a few magic wands he had picked up somewhere, he could not recklessly use large-scale destructive magic inside a hospital building. Should he just stall for time and wait for that hero to arrive and rescue him? No way. Doing that would be the same as admitting he had lost him. Besides, before he could even consider that, the monster in front of him was swelling and growing even larger. Other zombies were gradually merging into its body. Its newly formed body swelled again, and it stretched a skeletal hand toward Yakido. He could feel its strength increasing. He had to find a way to defeat it quickly. The zombies let out a howl. Yakido quickly retreated. Tentacles shot out, and sharp spikes came hurtling toward him. The spikes devastated the area, smashing the walls and sending chunks of plaster raining down. Yakido thought that if he let it grow any stronger, things would spiral completely out of control. But how was he supposed to fight it now? What he truly needed at this moment was a suppressive attack with an extremely wide range, one that could strike this entire gigantic undead calamity at once, but without enough destructive force to collapse or destroy the whole hospital. Yakido continued searching for a breakthrough. How could he possibly have such a convenient, perfectly suited weapon on hand? A sharp tentacle reached for him, forcing him to rack his brain. No, wait, hold on. The tentacles rushed at him at tremendous speed. Yakido cut one apart with his sword, the alchemy tools he had picked up earlier. First, he hid behind a bed. Yakido glanced at the jar beside him. Those things were not only useful for brewing medicine. A tentacle slammed down, denting the bed. Yakido had come up with a plan. If he did not have the weapon he needed, then he would just make it himself. Even while attacks rained down behind him, he had grown calmer. Weapons capable of making people disappear were surprisingly easy to find nearby. Even a stone lying by the roadside would do. He snapped off an iron pipe or a rusty section of metal tubing. Anything could become a weapon, as long as he decided it was a weapon. Update notification. Acquired 4 iron pipes. Yakido warily looked ahead. The monster's attacks had become more relentless. He lifted half a bed and asked it, "You're getting impatient and want to rush in and swallow me whole, don't you?" Yakido placed the object into his inventory. Notification. Added 1 flat iron sheet. Looking at the items in his inventory, he shouted, "Hey, you disgusting thing. Could you please act more like a zombie?" Yakido took out his shield. "Just shuffle around slowly and sluggishly, all right? Why are you in such a hurry?" Several more tentacles charged at him. Yakido moved nimbly and blocked them with his shield. Then he took a book out of his inventory. Blocking with his shield as he flipped through the book, he found a recipe for black powder. Its ingredients were potassium nitrate, making up roughly 73 to 79%, sulfur, around 2 to 12%, and charcoal, about 10 to 17%. Yakido was surprised. Charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate too? How was he supposed to find such troublesome chemicals in this situation? And using the spatial teleportation bracelet to go buy them now was completely out of the question. The remaining energy in the bracelet had already reached a dangerously low level. It seemed he had truly overused it during the recent string of battles. That meant he had to figure out how to make those ingredients himself, entirely from scratch. Yakido noticed a wooden crate in the corner. At least charcoal seemed a little easier to obtain. He picked it up. It only needed to be made by burning ordinary wood, right? Update notification. Acquired 1 raw cedar plank. Yakido threw the wood into the furnace. Update notification. Beginning wood burning process to produce charcoal. Warning. Your current profession is not suited for alchemy. Success rate reduced by 25%. Warning. You do not possess intermediate alchemy mixing. Success rate reduced by an additional 60%. Warning. Your magical energy is insufficient. If successful, the chance of producing a high-quality item is 2%, an ordinary item is 3%, and a defective item is 95%. Update notification. Charcoal successfully crafted. High-quality item. Yakido rejoiced inwardly. Good. Now all he needed was sulfur and potassium nitrate. But how the hell was he supposed to find those things in this freezing morgue? Yakido charged toward the monster. That was it. There was no doubt about it. A bit of blue fluid was leaking from its body. Yakido temporarily hid behind an upright bed and took out his phone. When faced with difficult, hopeless situations like this, modern technology was the most reliable thing to turn to. Yakido decided to ask an AI chat assistant. He entered the keywords, common everyday uses of sulfur and potassium nitrate. Update notification, loading data. Please wait a moment. A result appeared. Common examples included gunpowder for fireworks and explosives. Potassium nitrate had long been used as its main ingredient. Gunpowder containing potassium nitrate ignites intensely. When combined with charcoal as fuel, the reaction creates an explosion that releases enormous energy. These materials were also widely used in fireworks. Another familiar everyday example was matchboxes, whose match heads contained both sulfur and potassium nitrate. Yakido searched through his pockets. Right, that was it, the matches. When he had passed by the incense shelf earlier, he seemed to have seen a box of matches used to light incense. If that was true, then, he walked over to the girl. Yakido, search your pockets. Sorry, honored ancestors. Let me borrow these matches for a moment. When he found a matchbox, he was delighted, just as he had expected. Yakido threw it into the furnace. Now all he had to do was scrape the heads off the matches to extract the chemicals. Update notification. Beginning extraction of sulfur and potassium nitrate from matches. Warning. Your profession is not suited for alchemy. Success rate reduced by 25%. Warning. You do not possess intermediate alchemy mixing. Success rate reduced by an additional 60%. When a finished product appeared, a notification sounded. Extraction successful. Sulfur and potassium nitrate obtained. Yakido rejoiced inwardly. Excellent. Now he could finally start making black powder. A small bottle was completed. Black powder successfully crafted. High-quality item. He looked through his inventory. The next thing he absolutely needed was ammunition. Update notification. Buckshot round successfully crafted. With all the materials ready, Yakido decided it was time to get to work. He wrote in his notebook. Then he held it up and contemplated it for a moment. Confidence appeared on Yakido's face while the monster's tentacles slammed into the floor. It let out an ear-piercing roar, and all its tentacle-like arms lunged toward him. Yakido tore out the sheet of paper. Hey, monsters, do you know that zombies in movies that can sprint around at insane speeds are hated and looked down upon by fans of the classics? Yakido dropped all his pens, notebooks, and papers. A design appeared on the sheet. Yakido tapped the display screen. Notification. A completely new crafting recipe, never before seen in this world, has been discovered. Activating creative alchemy mode. The alchemy furnace blazed to life, and a series of warnings appeared. Warning, your profession is not suited for alchemy. Success rate reduced by 25%. Warning, you do not possess advanced alchemy mixing. Success rate severely reduced by an additional 70%. Warning, you do not possess any metalworking skill. This will greatly reduce the item's quality. Warning, your magical energy is insufficient. If successful, the chance of producing a superb item is 0.01%. An ordinary item is 0.99%, and a defective or failed item is 99%. Finally, a notification appeared. Update notification. Congratulations! You have successfully crafted a homemade iron pipe shotgun. Extremely rare quality. High-quality item. A flash of light appeared in Yakido's hands. He said, I never had some sick hobby of messing around with the bodies of the dead, but circumstances have forced my hand. Update notification. Buckshot and black powder have been loaded into the chamber. A shotgun appeared in his hands. Yakido aimed it at the monster. So enjoy this earth-shaking blast, you damned zombies. The zombie growled at Yakido, sending amplified sound waves toward him. Update notification. Warning. Using firearms is wholly incompatible with your current profession. Chance of jamming or misfiring increased by 30%. Accuracy reduced by 30%. Yakido had complete faith in his luck stat and fired repeatedly at it. When you're dealing with zombies, you have to use this. Notification. Target hit. Yakido kept firing as gunshots thundered through the room. Shot after shot exploded toward the zombie, the pellets embedding themselves in its body. The shots were both fast and accurate. Yakido was proud of himself. A shotgun really was the perfect choice. Its heads and tentacles fell to the floor. Parts of its body dropped away. Yakido aimed at the zombie's head, and it exploded under the blast. Yakido said disdainfully, You think you can bite me? Not happening, buddy. A huge chunk of its flesh was blown apart, yet it still was not dead. He exclaimed, This abomination is ridiculously tough. But when it comes to stubbornly hanging on until the end, I won't lose to anyone either. After a while, the zombie finally collapsed. Yakido continued aiming his gun at it and fired the last rounds. Bullets pierced through the tentacles and severed them. The final round completed its task and fell to the ground. Notification. The gun is out of ammunition. Only then did Yakido finally stop firing. He walked over to the monster and stepped on its body. Yakido let out an exhausted sigh. System notification. Player Yakido Takahashi has successfully defeated the Curse Calamity Massachusetts. Congratulations. You are the first person in the world to defeat this entity. Reward received, Saint Spirit Butcher. Damage dealt to immortal-type monsters increased by 30%. Only after seeing the notification did Yakido finally relax. He closed his eyes and savored his victory. Yakido was covered from head to toe in zombie slime. I finally won. The girl behind him let out a soft cry. He was delighted. Thank goodness. It looks like that antidote worked perfectly. But wait, I need to think. How am I supposed to explain why I'm here? An unauthorized person breaking in, covered in blood, and clutching a shotgun. No one would believe him if he told them the truth, that he was someone who had been reincarnated from a past life. Moreover, he was clearly inside a restricted area where outsiders were absolutely forbidden to enter. This was trespassing, plain and simple. On top of that, firing a gun outside a dungeon was already an extremely serious crime, violating firearms and bladed weapons control laws, as well as illegally entering a restricted zone. For now, he should put on his invisibility cloak and get the hell out of this place as quickly as possible. Yakido glanced toward the door. He needed to be more careful, but first, he had to activate his detection skill to make sure it was safe. He could hear footsteps. Someone was coming this way. Damn it, this was bad. Unfortunately, he was a warrior. The stealth capabilities of his class had definite limits. It was nowhere near as good as an assassin's. Yakido looked at the spatial teleportation bracelet, which was glowing red. There was not much magical energy left in it, but he silently prayed. Please, just let it work one more time. That is all I ask. Yakido touched the bracelet, but nothing happened. He tried to console himself, but it was no use. Of course, things could not always go smoothly and conveniently exactly the way he wanted. Outside the door stood two people in fully covered outfits, with a group of palanquin bearers behind them. A young woman, sitting in the palanquin, yawned as she listlessly looked at her phone. Yakido thought, the church is here. Wonderful. Judging by this, a whole pile of trouble is about to come crashing down on me. And they even arrived in a palanquin. One of the church followers reported, Lady Nami, there's a man over there behaving very suspiciously. Her eyes never left her screen. Could he be a heretic, an enemy of our faith? Her subordinate replied, I cannot say for certain, but his actions are indeed highly suspicious. Nami said, I understand. She tossed her phone to one of them. Continue focusing on the dungeon clearing event. Nami stepped down from the palanquin and clasped her hands together. Wealth, glory, and luxury are things you should be saving up for the kingdom of heaven. I will never accept being defeated by some pay-to-win rich brat, a fallen whale who throws money around to crush everyone else. The followers lined up neatly as Nami walked toward Yakido. So, you there? Are you a heretic, an enemy standing against our faith? Yakido pointed behind him. Actually, I'm the one who just wiped out all the zombies in there. Nami asked the crucial question, then how did you know there were zombies here? You do not look like a hospital employee, yet you detected them before I did, even though I have a zombie detection skill. Yakido did not know how to answer. Well, that is because Ozama's voice came from behind him. I sensed the danger and sent him inside ahead of us to assess the situation. Nami exclaimed, well, look who has arrived. Is that not our hero? Hero Ozama had arrived after everything was over. Nami bowed in greeting. He explained, I was tied up dealing with the aftermath of a traffic accident, so he went inside of my place to take care of it. Nami realized what had happened. I see. So that is how it was. If he is someone personally introduced by the hero, then there should be nothing to worry about. Besides, his sin score is fairly low. Yakido was surprised. A sin score? It sounded like some sort of hidden stat. He had never heard of it before. Nami cheerfully confirmed, that is right. My eyes of sinful insight allow me to see a person's good and evil through numerical values. Ozama clapped in praise, as expected of the youngest person in the church to attain the rank of high priest. Yakido privately assessed it. What a one-of-a-kind skill from such a rare class. Nami cleared her throat. It is nothing special, really, just an ordinary ability. But hero, Ozama looked confused. What is it? She asked. Is this the person who will be accompanying us on this holy purge mission? After saying that, Nami looked up at him. As if he had just remembered, Ozama gave a thumbs up. That is right. He is exactly the one. It would be great if he joined you. I am certain he will be a great help in freeing the Job Change Temple from the clutches of the dark forces. Nami immediately decided, I understand. If the hero personally vouches for him, I will personally escort him to the mission site. I have no objections myself. I am only worried about my subordinates. Yakido asked in confusion, Hey, what are you two whispering about over there? Do not go deciding things for someone else without asking. Beside him, Ozama still wore the same joking smile. Yakido, you really do love to joke around. He whispered, come over here for a moment. Since he had been told to come, Yakido followed him to a corner. Ozama spoke honestly. Sorry, but I really want you to help that girl in my place. Even you must know about that job change temple, right? Yakido replied, of course I do. But why? Yakido thought the Job Change Temple was an extremely important facility for adventurers. There, one could advance their current class or change to another job better suited to them. Ozama revealed. In our previous life, failing that holy purge mission delayed the liberation of the temple for a very long time. Nami was defeated then as well. He continued, that severely weakened the adventurers' forces, while the monsters and enemies only grew stronger by the day. Yakido threw the issue back at him. If you know all that, then why do you not go deal with it yourself? Ozama answered helplessly. I want to, but as you can see, I am already overwhelmed with work. There are countless seeds of disaster waiting to erupt all over this world. Yakido reminded him, but none of that sufficiently explains why I am the one who has to take the hit. Ozama patted his shoulder. Come on, you should use this opportunity to build a good relationship with the church. Their influence will become vital once you start challenging deeper dungeon floors. Yakido understood. You mean their spatial teleportation system and the support specialists they sent along, right? Yakido remembered that the church currently held a monopoly over all healers and support magic users. They had established powerful magical barriers on certain dungeon floors and used teleportation magic to help adventurers travel quickly between floors. He agreed. Fine, I can go along with your plan. Ozama happily asked, you mean it? Yakido grabbed him by the collar. But before we begin, you have to swear that from now on, you'll never lay a finger on my family again. Ozama agreed. Of course, I have no interest in causing trouble for or obstructing someone who is doing useful things for the world. Yakido pressed him. In short, you will turn a blind eye and let me go as long as I remain useful to you, right? Ozama put on an innocent expression. Do not make it sound like I am blackmailing or threatening you. I am clearly making a very polite and sincere request. Yakido did not believe him. Whatever. Say whatever you want, but I will not tolerate you staying silent, refusing to explain anything, and only telling me the truth after it is too late ever again. Do you hear me? Ozama got to the point. Understood. And let me tell you this first. Nami walked over and asked, have you two finished discussing your important business? He replied, yes. Sorry for making everyone wait so long. Nami casually said, it is all right. While you two were talking, we were busy purifying the battlefield over here. Nami raised the staff in her hand, and a radiance spread from it, purifying Yakido until he was clean again. Nami stepped back into the palanquin. In that case, let us head to the nearby church building. Yakido asked curiously, what are we going there for? She answered, I need to assess your actual capabilities to a certain degree first. It would be extremely dangerous to casually bring someone who does not even meet the minimum combat standard along on a mission. Two followers gestured for Yakido to follow. Ozama also left, so that was the procedure. But I know you will pass this test with perfect marks. Good luck, my friend. Yakido silently cursed. That bastard had slipped away long ago, just so he would not get dragged into this troublesome mess. Yakido sighed. Good grief. Looks like my lunch will be delayed again. They headed to a nearby church, and the room's doors were shut. Four followers faced Yakido. He stood alone, sword in hand. Nami clasped her hands and announced, let us begin. Your opponent will be one of my subordinates with average abilities. I think someone around level 40 should be just right. Yakido glanced at his opponent. That level was slightly higher than his own. Yakido said, then please begin. Nami sat down in the palanquin chair. She took out some snacks. Let's sit back and enjoy the show. My breadcrumbs. The battle officially began. Their blades collided, sending sparks flying. Yakido realized that the pressure behind his opponent's sword strikes was weaker than expected. Holy warriors naturally had defensive-oriented stats, but even accounting for that, their abilities seemed underwhelming for their level. Nami summoned his staff. You are better than I expected. In that case, let me show you a small fraction of the god's blessing. She began chanting Heracor Axel. A surge of power emanated from the tip of her staff. The follower's entire body blazed with red energy, catching Yakido off guard. The follower's sword strikes became rapid and precise, forcing Yakido to retreat. Their speed had suddenly risen dramatically. So this was the power of her buffs. Holy warriors possessed sturdy stats and durable armor. If only the opponent had buffs, a prolonged battle would put him at a disadvantage. Yakido frowned after noticing something unusual. He looked at the hand holding the opponent's sword. Yakido found his opening. The screws on the opponent's gauntlet were loose. Terrible maintenance. As his opponent swung down, Yakido retreated and thought, in that case, I'll take out a shield, move in, and exploit that weakness. I suppose this counts as sustainable development. That scrap iron produced during metal refining. Meanwhile, his opponent leaped high into the air. He transformed the weapon in his hand into a giant hammer. Oli de cri, thunderbolt explosion. Yakido calmly took something out. Piercing stinger toxin. He sprang upward. As his opponent prepared to strike, Yakido fired the bee venom. It clung to the loose screws on the gauntlet, and before long, the armor on the man's hand broke apart. As the man swung down, Yakido used a shield to block the punishment strike. The follower's hand was trembling now. He landed and retreated. Yakido raised his sword. The tip was pointed directly at his opponent's face. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. Yakido asked, "Do you still want to continue?" Having enjoyed the spectacle, Nami applauded. "No, that was an excellent performance. You have passed the test. You are very strong." Yakido nodded. "Thank you." He returned the sword to his opponent and thought, "It is not entirely because I am strong. These men have mostly become weaker because they rely too heavily on buffs." Still staring at her phone, Nami said, "Then we will be counting on you during the operation." Yakido breathed a sigh of relief. He replied, "See you then." After a long, tiring day, Yakido finally returned home. Keeping his promise, he showed off his cooking skills and brought out 2 fragrant plates of golden fried rice. The food is ready. 3 plates of rice were placed on the table, but Yakido's plate smelled burnt. He announced, "All right, everyone, let us eat." The 2 of them were speechless. "I knew it. How thoughtful." Yuka called out, "Nozomi, dinner is ready." Even so, Brother Yakido went to the trouble of cooking for all of us himself. She politely replied, "Thank you for the meal." Yakido smiled as he looked at the 2 people dearest to him, both still safe and sound. He thought, Mom has recovered, and I have settled the regrets from my previous life. I have even saved enough money that Nozomi will not need to worry about finances until she becomes an adult. This outcome is far better than I could have hoped for. But he still did not know when that hero might change his mind. His immediate goal was to become strong enough to drive him back. Nozomi suddenly said, "You do not need to push yourself so hard, brother." He could not stop worrying. Even after hearing his sister's advice, there was nothing else he could do right now. He changed the subject. "It is a little burnt, but it still tastes good." After eating, Yakido clasped his hands as usual. "Thank you for the meal." He decided that his top priority now was to personally resolve the mess at the job change temple. The scene shifted to Nami's office. She was reading comments. "The king's kingdom is near. Repent and leave a comment." Other comments appeared. "Sorry, I joined a Spamon cult. I am now a follower of that useless, flat-chested queen. Bring out some meta characters before you start talking about the king." Nami sighed, thinking that she could not have a normal conversation with these people. She was preaching to people who clearly had no genuine faith at all. Make peace with the king. As expected, everyone wanted to witness a miraculous milestone, but the gacha characters from collaboration events were still much stronger than the king. No one believed in anything except the tangible results before their eyes. But spending money on gacha was considered wasteful, which was why their sin scores had skyrocketed. Nami stared at her phone in disgust. She was so bored that she slumped onto her desk. Nami angrily slammed down her phone. "You filthy money grubbers. Every last one of you has a sin score that is far too high. You cursed material worshippers." Suddenly, someone spoke up. "Saintess Nami, may I have a few minutes of your time?" She permitted him to speak. "Go ahead." The first of the 4 followers said, "Please forgive my boldness." Nami asked curiously, "What brings all of you here?" The man knelt and reported, "We have come to submit a petition regarding the Holy Crusade to liberate the temple." Nami asked, "Is there a problem with the upcoming Holy Crusade?" The follower requested, "All adventurers should be removed from this operation. Their sin scores are too high. They are extremely dangerous." Nami felt a headache coming on. Again, honestly, she did not care about either side. All she wanted was to deepen her own faith. Yet because she bore the title of saintess, she kept getting dragged into the church's troublesome political affairs. Another follower said, "In truth, the adventurers' previous liberation missions have all ended in disastrous failures. Isn't that right? Nami confirmed it. Yes, the church headquarters has analyzed the data from those failures. The results show that teams with better moral conduct have a significantly higher survival rate. Therefore, headquarters concluded that the hidden parameter we use to distinguish good from evil, the sin score, affects the strength of enemies hostile to the faith. Precisely. That is why only people with low sin scores, like us, should handle this battle. However, the hero has also warned that placing too much faith in sin score values is dangerous. The follower slammed his hand onto the table. But even if the sin score proves unreliable, the sudden noise startled Nami. He continued, from a moral standpoint, the difference is obvious. On one side are adventurers living depraved, indulgent lives. On the other are us, who maintain devout lives of faith and discipline. It is obvious which side represents justice. My sources say that there are even people among them who have committed crimes in the past. Nami understood. What you say is partly true, but I've already promised to accompany them on this mission. The follower offered a solution. You never said you would be required to fight alongside those people, Saintus. Nami sighed. Very well. If all of you feel this strongly, I will not allow the adventurers to participate in the battle at the temple. All I care about is rescuing the temple from the clutches of evil. Having gotten what they wanted, the followers knelt and cried, "We are deeply grateful, Saintus." After leaving the office, one of them happily exclaimed, "Saintus Nami has listened to our request." Inwardly, he sneered. Girls who knew nothing of the world were truly easy to manipulate. Another added, "Just as we would expect from our Saintus." He thought it was better to set up a lightweight puppet that was easy to lead than someone difficult to control. Another corrected him. "It is we, not her, who should bear the danger of fighting the enemies of God." He thought, "We cannot allow the hero's faction to gain any more influence within the church." They believed that Nami's further promotion was now assured, and afterward, they could use her to squeeze even more generous subsidies out of church headquarters. They all agreed. All right, everyone, let us return to diligently serving in today's sacred duties. The scene shifted to the meeting point outside the city center. Yakido glanced at his phone. At last, the day of the Holy Crusade had officially arrived. We have not even had a chance to properly discuss the battle plan. Yakido messaged Nami. "I really want to discuss the strategy," she replied. "My subordinates will present the entire plan only on the day of the operation." Yakido responded, "That will not do. We need to explain everything to the other adventurers beforehand." He went to the adventurers' guild reception desk. After all, he had agreed to take on the role of leader for the adventurers, at least on paper. Such a title clearly came with moral responsibility. Then, Yakido entered the teleportation gate. He was transported to the first floor of the Tokyo dungeon. Indelible footprints. First board. Yakido saw Nami and stepped forward. "Good morning." She politely bowed. "Good morning to you as well." His expression turned extremely serious. Those followers had a bad attitude. Yakido knew that today's mission would certainly not go smoothly. He stood before a group of adventurers. He bowed and said, "I am truly sorry the newcomer like me has become the one leading the team." Yakido felt awkward. With so many experienced veterans in front of him, the pressure was immense. One person said casually, "No, do not worry about that, kid." Another added, "If the hero personally chose you, then you cannot be a bad choice. We owe the hero a great deal, after all." Yakido was surprised. "You all owe him?" Ibara, a member of the team, replied, "If it were not for the hero, all of us would still be rotting in prison cells right now." Yakido finally understood. So he really does things worthy of a hero in his spare time. Yakido recalled Ozama's saying, "Do not make that face. I'm only asking you for a favor. Just a favor." Even so, he still did not feel entirely comfortable with it. Then Nami gave the order. "All right, we will now proceed to the temple on the 30th floor and officially begin the Holy Crusade." The group headed to the church on the first floor of the dungeon. Yakido followed behind, quietly thinking. On dungeon floors that humanity had conquered and secured, a church would normally be built. Under ordinary circumstances, using one required adventurers to pay an enormous donation. But since this was an official church operation, it would be free this time. Once inside, everyone stood within a circular magic formation. A nun clasped her hands and recited an ancient incantation. The teleportation formation activated. They vanished, and the entire group was transported elsewhere. The follower stepped out first and opened the door. The adventurers, including Yakido, followed. Before them lay a pitch-black place, the 30th floor of the Tokyo dungeon, frozen aurora, eternal polar night. Yakido assessed the area. This dungeon floor was dimly illuminated only by faint streams of aurora light. There were very few monsters and almost no valuable resources. More strangely, there were no boss monsters here at all. As a result, adventurers could proceed directly to the next floor. These days, it was a dungeon floor that most adventurers chose to pass through as quickly as possible. Yakido approached Nami and asked, "Does the church truly have a tactical plan for dealing with the temple?" She answered, "Yes. The church will personally destroy the evil force within the temple. As for the adventurers, we want you to provide security and patrol the surrounding area." Yakido frowned, understanding her meaning. In other words, you do not want adventurers like us participating in the battle inside the temple. Is that correct? The other two adventurers exchanged looks. A follower clarified, "Please do not misunderstand. It would be extremely dangerous for people with sin scores as high as yours to enter the temple. Leave the punishment of evil to experts like us." Yakido realized it was exactly as the hero had previously said. Ozama had revealed that the so-called sin score was actually a deeply flawed and loophole-ridden measurement. It had too many gaps to be an absolutely reliable tool. It could identify obvious villains in society, but it was utterly incapable of exposing sanctimonious hypocrites. And innocent little Nami was being thoroughly exploited by those very hypocrites. Yakido asked curiously, "What about your specialized assassination skill?" The man replied, "If dozens of people suddenly died within a short period, it would immediately cause a massive scandal and damage our reputation." Yakido was helpless. These people were truly rotten beyond saving. He said, "Even so, we are ultimately accountable to the Adventurers Guild. We cannot do a half-hearted job and ruin our own reputation. Please rest assured, our beloved Saintess Nami is extremely generous and forgiving." The follower immediately replied, "At this very moment, she has approved your commission as successfully completed and will ensure that every last bit of your reward is paid in full. So, if anyone is dissatisfied with the church's arrangement, you are free to return home immediately." Yakido said indifferently, "Receiving full payment without having to put in any effort or fight at all. That is certainly a generous offer." He crumpled the document the follower had handed him. Yakido thought, "But in essence, our position in this operation is merely that of outside support. That puts us at a disadvantage and leaves us with no say before them." A follower urged Nami, "Now then, Saintess Nami, let us advance and begin our glorious holy crusade. Let us unite our faith and completely sweep away the enemies of God." Nami turned back apologetically. "We're going to carry out the mission now." Yakido watched them leave. The adventurers discussed what they should do in this situation. Another said, "What can we do?" Officially, this commission has already been marked as completed. Someone commented, "Honestly, if we're still being paid in full, is it not better to just stay out here?" Yakido remembered how, throughout his future lives, he had helplessly watched this entire group of fools die miserable deaths. Please, save these idiots. But how could he suddenly say something so insane in front of everyone? How the hell was he supposed to sort out this damn mess by himself? That reckless, irresponsible hero, good luck to you. The door slowly opened before Nami. She led the followers inside. Nami looked up and saw a group of goblins kneeling at the feet of a statue. They were silent and did not attack. They merely bowed submissively before the statue. Nami found this suspicious. The monsters ahead were not attacking. So that was why there were so few monsters on this floor. Perhaps because the followers seized the opportunity and charged forward. "Look, the monsters have their backs turned to us. They're completely off guard. This is our chance. Begin the holy crusade." Black mist spread outward from the statue. Black tears flowed from its eye sockets, while its mouth twisted into a grin stretching from ear to ear. Blood-red wings sprouted from behind the statue, releasing an intense, bloody aura. The followers froze. What is this? Why is the Demon King growing stronger? We are devout followers. We should not be strengthening an enemy of God. Does this mean there's a heretic among us? They all thought the same thing. No, that cannot be it. Company assets did not count as personal spending, so that was perfectly safe. Embezzling slush funds, buying luxury sports cars, and spending extravagantly were bad. But accepting expensive gifts that others had voluntarily offered out of goodwill was completely fine. Flattering superiors, visiting sacred rivers, and eating rare melons. Lust was bad, but repeatedly marrying and divorcing was technically safe. Ordinary desires approved by law were legal. If this temple monster discovered what I was really like, I would be in serious trouble. But the others are surely genuinely devout followers. So if I secretly skim a little for myself, they were confident that there would be no problem. Nami suddenly spoke. In the end, the hero was completely right. The monsters turned to look at her as well. Nami planted her staff on the ground and declared, "We can search for the culprit later. For now, focus on the enemy before us." The follower regained his confidence. "Yes, you are right. We still have Saintess Nami with us." They charged forward again. "With Nami's blessing, this temple can never defeat us." Nami began chanting, and the staff in her hand glowed pink. A follower forcefully swung his sword at a goblin. Another was rushed by a monster. A mage fired flames at the followers. Seeing their great numbers, someone exclaimed, "This is intense. They do not move like ordinary monsters at all." Nami calmly reassured them. "Do not panic. These are all recorded monster species commonly found below the 30th floor. There is no reason why people who have conquered the 40th floor cannot defeat them." Healing energy restored the followers. They became confident. "That is right. We are strong." They rushed into battle with the monsters. The Demon King's bloody aura continued to spread, while its lower body and mouth gathered power. Red energy enveloped the monsters, and their entire bodies abruptly erupted with power. The monsters became more ferocious and launched a relentless assault. Someone tensely realized they suddenly became much stronger. "We have never heard any reports of this," Nami thought. "So this creature's divine power automatically increases whenever it slaughtered adventurers, and now it has even gained the ability to manipulate humans." There was no rule stating that humans were the only species able to learn new skills upon leveling up. The empowered monsters roared and lunged at a follower. A wolf clamped down on his wrist. Blood sprayed out, speckling Nami's face. Another follower was lifted by a giant monster like a toy. Nami gritted her teeth and increased the healing power. It was deliberately keeping them alive to drain her mana alone. The other two noticed, "Can we really win this battle? The situation is starting to turn extremely bad." Nami looked at the bloody aura radiating from the Demon King. "So that is how it is?" The thick blood-red aura spread everywhere. The Demon King continuously released its bloody aura, and its eyes turned a blazing crimson. It looked especially sinister. Nami realized our fear is being stirred up and transformed into fuel for its own power. She forced herself to calm down and close her eyes. When she opened them again, Nami's gaze was filled with determination. She announced, "We can surely win without suffering any casualties. That is why I will turn this place into a holy ground of martyrdom. I will activate the forbidden sacrificial spell, my strongest finishing move, to carve a bloody path straight to the king's statue ahead." The situation was overwhelmingly one-sided. The wolves' howls frightened the followers away from charging forward. She declared, "Now is the time to demonstrate the power of our faith." The two sides rushed toward each other. The first followers were about to clash with the murderous monsters. Blood splattered across the faces of the followers in the rear as two men were defeated by the monsters. The sight terrified and discouraged the other three. A wolf, a bloody chunk of flesh still clamped in its jaws, fixed its gleaming eyes on them. They became even more frightened and ran away. "I don't want to die in a place like this. Somebody save me." Nami could not believe it. "What? Get back here and hold the formation." One man shouted back, "Shut up," as he pounded desperately on the door. The followers were blocked in. "Once you're dead, there's no king or Buddha left. Damn it, this door won't open." Nami wondered in disbelief how they could betray the king so easily. "I was prepared to die as a martyr, but I do not want to throw my life away for nothing." Outside, Yakido and the adventurers had not yet left. He decided that, since he was no expert negotiator, it was best to stop trying to be clever. Yakido spoke up. Listen, everyone. The church's requested mission has already been completed, but I have a new request of my own. To free this temple, we do not need to return to the Adventurers Guild to file paperwork, so this will only be a verbal agreement. Someone said, if you are the one chosen by the hero, then you surely would not cheat us out of our payment. Another person asked curiously, but why do you want to help those people that badly? Yakido answered frankly, I think the hero must have had his own reason for sending us here in the first place. His words made them all think of Ozama. Yakido continued, and I simply cannot accept it. He remembered Nami's sorrowful expression before they left. Yakido urged them not to turn away while a child was being manipulated and exploited by adults. An adventurer gave a sound of agreement. They accepted. Let us live up to the hero's faith in us. After all, we are adventurers. Yakido sighed in relief. That hero really could be reckless. The adventure party began moving toward the church. Yakido thought, but there is a limit to everything. That hero really did gather a whole group of soft-hearted people together. He stepped forward and placed a hand on the door. Yakido turned back solemnly and announced, all right, everyone, prepare yourselves to break down the door and charge in. A sound came from inside, and his expression darkened. A dense, bloody aura seeped out through the gap beneath the door. Yakido realized the situation looked bad. The danger zone map displayed countless red dots. Two members spoke up. This has clearly exceeded the acceptable level of risk. No, I cannot knowingly lead my comrades to their deaths. A female adventurer watched them leave, then looked anxiously at those who remained. The adventurers who left said, we're sorry. Yakido saw that half the group had already left. He chose to think more positively. No, perhaps I should think of it as half of them still choosing to stay. Yakido placed his hand on the door. I have no right to blame those who left. If it were not for Nozomi's circumstances, I probably would have turned around and fled long ago as well. A voice called out from behind him. Leader! The adventurers who remained encouraged him. Times like these are exactly when you need to smile. Pretend to be optimistic until even your body believes it. Yakido relaxed a little. You're right. As the door opened, the followers inside came tumbling out. Yakido stepped on one man's face and mocked him. Looks like you people have been having a rather rough time. Nami turned around in stunned disbelief. He announced, Squad 5, your kind-hearted neighbors who are always ready to do a good deed, has arrived just in time to bail you out. Nami was astonished. You people. The follower beneath his foot was still defiant. Stop. You heretics. You absolutely must not enter. If trash like you enters this temple, it will only become even more savage. Yakido replied calmly, How ridiculous. The enemies do not look any different from before. The follower was shocked. How can that be? That man has a prior conviction for theft, while that woman used to be a prostitute. Yakido could not stand hearing his comrades' past exposed here. He turned and shouted, Shut up. I have heard enough nonsense from you hypocrites. If God only blesses those who have never made mistakes, then why did Christ choose a tax collector and someone who was essentially a member of a criminal gang as his apostles? Why did the Saint Shinran teach that sinners are the very ones who could be saved? The followers were left speechless. The adventurers were ready. Yakido continued, I will show you that people can start over at any time, and that is the strength of adventurers. People who keep moving forward, even after making mistake after mistake. Nami watched the adventurers advance. A wolf behind her prepared to pounce. Why are all of you here? Yakido immediately moved from his original position. He swung his sword straight at the wolf's neck. Yakido reminded her, we can talk about that later. Focus on the fight first. Countless sword strikes flashed out, and powerful lightning struck directly into the center of the monsters. The two monsters gritted their teeth and glared at them furiously. Nami took out a vial of holy medicine and drank it. Her strength was restored. She warned them, the enhanced enemies possess strength equivalent to monsters from the 40th floor and above. Your half-baked equipment will be completely ineffective against them, Yakido added, which means we have no choice but to confront them head-on. Nami raised her staff. I will immediately cast support magic on the entire party. Their strength was enhanced. Two adventurers charged toward the goblins, exchanging glances as they coordinated their movements. The rogue threw 3 daggers, then rushed directly before a goblin and slashed at it. Meanwhile, the warrior fought the other one. Yakido was finishing off the wolf, yet he still glanced back at their combat coordination. It was truly impressive. The mage was also attacking the giant goblin from a afar. He believed that if everything had gone as the hero originally planned, this would surely have been an easy victory for them. Watching the followers flee, Yakido thought regretfully, "Unfortunately, with our forces reduced by half, all we can do now is barely keep the battle balanced." He said to Nami, "This is the most we can do with our depleted numbers. If this continues, we will never break through their encirclement. Do you have another plan?" She answered, "Yes. I will personally end this battle against the evil king's statue by using sacrificial magic." Yakido froze upon hearing this. "What? You mean sacrificial magic? That is the only offensive magic priests possess. It allows them to turn their own life force into an enormous source of magical power to destroy the enemy. But the price of defeating a boss monster at that supreme level is death. Is that simple?" Yakido asked, "Are you serious?" She confirmed it. "Yes, I have always been ready to die as a martyr ever since I first became aware of this life." Yakido stopped trying to persuade her. "I understand." He silently prepared himself, then shouted, "At this rate, we will never break through. Everyone, focus on carving a path through them and charge straight toward the evil king's statue." All the adventurers and the 4 remaining followers formed a protective circle around Nami, with Yakido leading them. A powerful, bloody aura poured from the evil king's mouth. They bravely charged toward the statue. The female mage gathered her magic, while Nami activated a ring of holy light behind them. The followers in the rear guard also joined the fight. Yakido took the lead against the goblin, while the followers confronted the monsters. Soon, monster corpses littered the ground. The obstacles had been cleared, and Nami stepped forward. She approached the foot of the evil king's statue. Nami said, "Thank you, everyone." A blue purifying energy radiated around her body. "At last, I can fulfill my role completely." Nami recited the supreme incantation. "I am the arrow of the god Indra, the thunderbolt of the Supreme One. Even if this body must turn to dust, I will still strike down the king's enemy." As she spoke, tears streamed down Nami's cheeks. Yakido watched her closely. Standing beneath the statue, Nami prepared herself to embrace martyrdom. Beads of sweat ran down her face. Her hands trembled as images of death from her previous life and blood-stained hands flooded her mind. Yakido was deeply shaken. She saw an image of herself dead. A voice rang out, "What is happening? Your legs are obviously trembling." Yakido stood in front of her and struck the evil king. He asked, "Could it be that you are afraid of death too?" Nami was still trembling. Truly." Yakido patted her head. "It is perfectly normal to be afraid when facing death. Even the great Christ sought a moment of quiet reflection before completing his supreme path." Tears filled her face at those words. He praised her. "So, what if you are afraid? Are you saying you are braver and stronger than Christ himself?" Nami said anxiously, "But without my sacrificial magic, we will never defeat the king's enemy." Yakido denied it. "No, there is something else you can do better." She stared up at him in confusion as he reminded her. "Praying, that is the true duty of a genuine priest, is it not?" Nami froze in astonishment. She remembered that she had never truly sought salvation through her own faith. As long as she did exactly as the scriptures instructed, everything had always gone smoothly. Yet in its truest and purest form, prayer was the only thing one could turn to when facing life's absurdities. Nami let go of her staff and knelt on the floor. Entrust everything to the king and sincerely pray to him for salvation. She clasped her hands together with utmost sincerity. Perhaps I have never truly understood what genuine prayer is. Pure blue light shone down from above. At that fateful moment, a healing energy enveloped the entire church, purifying all of the bloody aura. The evil king's statue was gradually purified as well. Its face no longer looked as terrifying as before. Nami was astonished by what had happened. Yakido praised her. "You did very well. Keep praying, and you will surely be granted your wish." Yakido understood clearly that performing the class change ritual required 2 essential conditions. One was the sincere prayer of a priest, and the other was the presence of a sacrificial altar within a holy temple. The problem was that they were in the middle of a chaotic battle, and humanity still had not fully seized control of the sacrificial altar from the enemy. Therefore, there was no guarantee that this class change ritual would succeed, except in his own case. Notification, system, class change ritual initiated. Beginning process to determine ownership of the sacrificial altar. Humanity, 49%. Evil faction, 51%. Humanity, 51%. Evil faction, 49%. Humanity, 47%. Evil faction, 53%. Confirmation complete. Ownership of the sacrificial altar officially belongs to humanity. Yakido rejoiced inwardly at the notification. The screen updated. System, please select the class you wish to change into. First class, Warrior. Trait, offense is the best defense. Requirement, defeat an enemy overwhelmingly stronger than yourself in a one-on-one battle. Status, requirements fulfilled. Combat achievement, earned title, Giant Slayer. Nami was astonished. A class change ritual? I never imagined this temple could activate such power. Yakido added, it seems our sincere prayers to God have finally been answered. She advised him yes. Please choose the Paladin class. Nami continued persuading him. If you choose that class, you will immediately gain healing magic and receive an enormous boost to your defensive attributes. Even within the entire church, the number of people who have become paladins can be counted on one hand. It is an extraordinarily rare, top-tier class. Yakido passed over it. Unfortunately, I'm not really the sort of moral or devout person suited to that. The kind of person you described is probably someone who pulls weeds. My decision is to go with this class. Nami was shocked. What? Notification. System. Beginning class change process. Golden energy enveloped Yakido, while purple wisps appeared before him. They left a mark on his face like that of a jester. Notification updated. Congratulations, adventurer Yakido Takahashi. You have officially changed your class to Jester. Nami asked blankly, why? Why would you make things difficult for yourself by deliberately choosing the Jester class? Is that not the most notoriously useless and worthless class of all? As Yakido remembered, in the timeline of his previous life, the Jester had always been despised as a trash class that anyone could easily access, yet no one would ever choose. Because, at their core, all of the Jester's combat skills were nothing more than gambles that depended entirely on probability and luck. I once tried using a Jester to fight a slime, and it was clearly a class made for comic relief, not something you could bring into a serious battle. Yet that harsh reality was completely different when the class was in my hands alone. It was practically a god-tier class. Behold the skill, all or nothing. He turned back and called out, everyone here, pile every attack and strength buff you have onto me right now. Nami immediately picked up her staff from the floor. All right. She raised her staff and began gathering power. Energy surged out from Yakido's body. He thought to himself, system, activate the enhancement spells. The target's attack power and critical damage were doubled. Damage dealt to undead monsters increased by 30%. Title confirmed, Holy Slayer. He raised the sword in his hand. Next, system, activate multi-layer heavy strike. Critical damage was tripled. Immediately afterward, the system activated all or nothing. The skill's effects were as follows. Nami stared blankly at the scene. Black energy leaked from the evil king's mouth. System update. All or nothing has a 50% chance of making your next attack deal 10 times its normal damage. The other 50% chance reduces all of your attributes to 1/10 of their normal values. Effect duration, 1 hour. Yakido immediately dashed from where he stood. The sword in his hand blazed with holy light. The evil king's crimson eyes glanced at him. A dense bloodlust burst forth, but Yakido was unaffected and continued charging forward. He suddenly asked, you've all heard this familiar saying before, haven't you? Yakido's movement was reflected in the evil king's eyes. A powerful sword strike came crashing down, shattering the statue into countless fragments. The pieces fell to the ground. He landed as well, having completely fulfilled the mission. Yakido turned back to them. There are those who begin as lowly slaves, yet rise to become glorious kings. And there are ordinary mad jesters who possess the power to slaughter even the loftiest gods with their own hands. Nami silently listened to his words. The others cheered in delight. Amazing! The temple's boss monster has finally been defeated. Now only the insignificant monsters around us remain. The adventurers rushed toward them. The monsters trembled in fear. Everyone, hunt them down and wipe them out completely. Before long, they had all been exterminated. The adventurers rejoiced. They've all been wiped out. We were so lucky that everyone made it out safely. A beam of light shone behind Nami. She turned to look. It was sunlight shining in through a window. Yakido smiled as a system screen appeared. A series of system updates appeared. Adventurer, Yakido Takahashi has successfully defeated the evil king. New title granted, Slayer of Evil Gods. Damage dealt to undead monsters increases by 50%. A new record for the highest damage ever dealt has been set. Damage output has exceeded the permitted limit. Heavy Layer Strike has evolved into the ultimate finishing technique. Yakido turned to look at Nami, who had pressed her lips together. The final notification appeared. The human faction has now taken complete control of the Temple of Cyclical Fates. The entire group was overjoyed. The temple doors opened, and the place became much more spacious. Nami used healing energy to restore the adventurers, and everyone recovered. Yakido spoke up. All right, the holy temple has now been completely cleansed of evil. Someone called from behind them, "Hey, everyone." It was the adventurer who had left earlier. Is everyone all right? Yakido looked surprised. Somehow we all made it out safely. So you stayed here, waiting for us? The man replied awkwardly. Well, even if we couldn't go in and fight alongside you, we could at least stay behind to cover and support you. We also sent an urgent request to the Adventurers Guild for reinforcements. They sighed in relief, but judging by the situation, it looks like that won't be necessary anymore. Yakido replied, No, that's not true. Simply escorting us safely on the way back will already be an enormous help. The man glanced to one side. I see. Oh, and one more thing. A few extremely suspicious-looking men came running in this direction like their lives depended on it. So we caught them just to be safe. Yakido glanced at Nami, whose expression darkened. That is true, but normally church personnel are judged and sentenced by the church itself. I think this matter should be handed over. One trembling follower stammered, as Saintess Nami. She bowed to the adventurers who had captured them. Thank you very much. I sincerely apologize for causing all of you trouble. As for these sinful men, I will personally oversee matters to ensure they receive punishment appropriate for their crimes. A total of 6 men had been captured. Yakido said, All right, everything here has basically been resolved. Would you mind taking over the remaining work? I need to return and submit a detailed report on everything to the Adventurers Guild. Nami nodded. Yes, I understand. Yakido left with the other adventurers. See you later. Nami suddenly called out, Yakido. He looked surprised. What is it? She answered, I only want to ask you one thing. You said you aren't particularly religious or devout, yet you seem extraordinarily familiar with the ancient scriptures. Why did Christ choose a tax collector as his apostle? And even Christ, before his execution, feared death, fell into despair, and cried out in anguish. Isn't that right? And why did Saint Shinran teach that it is sinners who are saved? Where did you learn such profound things? Yakido hesitated. Oh, that? If I have to explain honestly, it's just some old tricks and bits of knowledge I happened to pick up in the past. Yakido recalled that, in his previous life, there had been a religious organization that regularly distributed charity meals to the poor. If he showed a little devotion or acted interested in learning their scriptures, they would generously give him an extra serving of free food. Naturally, that practical reason was not something he could proudly admit to others. The next day, at the church, Nami radiated a chilling, murderous aura as she stared at the fugitives. They kowtowed on the floor and began weeping dramatically. Saintess Nami, we know our sins. We will repent and completely change our ways from now on. Please show us mercy. She clasped her hands. Of course I will agree. The gods are merciful and grant you a chance to atone for your mistakes. They asked joyfully, Really? What awaited them was a prison cell. Nami continued. However, crimes of the mortal world must receive appropriate punishment according to mortal law. I have heard that melons originally came from distant East Africa. The implied threat made the man tremble violently. She continued, and if the base desires arising from the lower parts of your bodies are the root cause of your corruption and crimes, then the most thorough solution is castration. Nami had finished dealing with them. Then, she removed the hat from her head. Next, it is my turn to receive punishment. 2 other followers pleaded, Saintess Nami, please reconsider. How could someone as young as you possibly bear any sin? This is entirely our fault for failing to root out the corruption and decay among our superiors. Nami placed her garments down. Before the great witness of the gods, age is meaningless. I bear the sin of sloth, the sin of cruelly turning away from the injustice right before my eyes. Therefore, I will officially resign as head of this church branch and begin my spiritual training again from nothing. The loyal followers wept bitterly. Please don't abandon us, Saintess Nami. Nami left the church where she had spent so much time. She looked up at the vast sky and the flocks of birds flying freely. I must go out and learn more about this wider world. The harsh truth is that I was completely left behind and helpless when confronting the enemies of the gods. Meanwhile, those independent adventurers achieved the results I needed. I must humbly learn more from those kind neighbors who are always willing to do good. The scene shifted to Yukito's home. He was sitting in his room, watching television. Yukito heard a knock at the door and went to see who was outside. When he saw the visitor, Yukito's eyes widened in surprise. Nami stood outside with a smile. "Hello, everyone. Do you believe in the existence of gods?" Yukito tried to close the door. "As for religion, please excuse me. I already have somewhere to place my faith." Nami instantly moved from where she stood and slipped into the room, holding a Bible in her hand. "Don't reject me so quickly. At least listen to what I have to say." He stared at her in astonishment. That was fast, she realized. So non-offensive magic can be freely cast and used on the surface? Yukito added, "A speed enhancement buff, huh?" Yuku's voice came from inside. "Oh, Yukito, you're back? Do we have a guest?" Nami politely introduced herself. "Hello, Mom. My name is Nami. I am an incompetent junior who has always received guidance from Yukito." He was speechless. A church priest could lie so shamelessly? Nami denied it. "It isn't a lie. After all humanity in this world are brothers and sisters." Yuku asked suspiciously, "Yukito's junior?" Nami confirmed, "Yes." Yuku thought for a moment. "Nami, I feel like I've seen your face somewhere before." At last, she remembered. "Ah, that's right. Yukito, when you volunteered at the food relief distribution center, Nami and the nuns were there too." Yuku continued, "You really stood out back then, a child who worked incredibly hard among all those adults." Nami admitted, "Yes, that event was part of the charity work organized by our church branch." Yukito thought to himself, so their diocese was the one that helped my family during those difficult times? He brought Nami a pair of house slippers. "Anyway, come inside first." Yuku warmly welcomed her. "I'll make some hot tea." He asked curiously, "How did you know my home address?" She replied, "I asked that, hero." Ozama had confidently said, "Yukito's house? Of course I know exactly where it is." Yukito was annoyed. That damned hero had casually leaked his private information. Tea and snacks were set out for the guest. He asked seriously, "So what exactly do you want?" Nami answered, "That's right." She stated, I truly want to form a combat party with you, Yukito." Yukito was stunned by her request. He understood. It was true. Perhaps it was finally time for him to join a combat party. His mother had completely recovered, so he no longer had to force himself to endlessly grind for ultra-rare drops in order to earn money for her treatment. But Yukito did not understand one thing. "Why did you choose me?" She answered devoutly, "Because within you, I happen to see the glorious light of this world." Yukito was confused. "I don't really understand what you mean." Nami continued, "Actually, even I cannot fully understand it myself." Yukito was speechless. This girl was truly difficult to read. Still, he thought, honestly, this was clearly a very good opportunity for him. The ability of one person grinding alone in a dungeon would inevitably have limits. At the very least, from a professional perspective, he would never recommend that anyone choose to grind dungeons alone. A highly capable support enhancer was an incredibly valuable asset, and top combat parties would normally rush to recruit one immediately. Yukito extended his hand toward Nami. "All right then, let's try fighting together." She was overjoyed upon hearing that. Nami took his hand. "I truly look forward to working and fighting alongside you from now on." Outside, the sky was clear and bright. The door stood quietly open. Yukito stepped outside with his belongings, preparing for the coming adventure with Nami. "I have already made some preparations myself. First, I spent a great deal of money to buy an entirely new house. Now that my reputation has begun spreading widely, I have become extremely concerned about my family's security and safety. And ever since Nami chose to leave the church, someone had messaged her asking, 'By the way, Nami, where are you staying these days?' She was currently camping outdoors. She clearly needed a proper room to stay in. Most importantly, in case something unexpected happened in the future. Yukito would fully use his supreme luck stat to amass a huge fortune and arrange everything properly, ensuring that his family would always have a secure inheritance left behind for them. What I am doing is not for anyone else. It is so that I can finally begin a true adventure of my very own. That was something he absolutely had to accomplish no matter what. Nozomi arrived at the meeting place. Sorry to keep you waiting so long, big brother. Yakido praised her. Nozomi, you look much cuter with your hair tied up neatly. Yuku asked, did you bring a handkerchief with you? Yakido smiled softly at the sight. He led Nami along. If everything is ready, then let's head out. They made their way through the city center, where skyscrapers stood close together. They walked quietly down the street. Yakido realized that, even with one additional party member, his current situation had not really changed much. Nami started a conversation. It's hot again today, isn't it? He replied, yeah, but the dungeon is still much more comfortable than this heat outside. As he passed an area broadcasting the news, an announcement played, the hero has officially reached level 70 in a record-breaking period. He glanced at Ozama on the huge LED screen. The hero's back was still far, far ahead of him. No matter how diligently he trained, that man would continue growing stronger at an even more terrifying pace. He brought her to the Adventurers Guild. Yakido walked up to the reception desk. Even so, he had absolutely no intention of stopping here. The receptionist had become familiar with Yakido, so he smiled brightly. Thank you for your hard work. He recalled that he had become far too accustomed to being timid and weaker than everyone else. After all, in his previous life, he had not possessed even the slightest hope. He headed toward the teleportation gate. The sight of the dungeon appeared before him. Yet in this present time, he believed there were still many things he could accomplish with his own hands. Yakido greeted the slimes. Long time no see. Right after entering, he encountered some rare silver slimes. Nami took out her staff and asked, do you need me to cast a speed enhancement spell? He refused. No, it's fine. Let me handle these monsters myself in a one-on-one fight. Several slimes lunged at Yakido. He saw how his luck stat had granted him blatant and undeniable advantages, such as the power to openly cheat. It manipulated every probability in the world. A critical strike sliced the slimes to pieces. He secretly rejoiced at the rare equipment, as well as the guaranteed drops of ultra-rare items. Yakido looked at his silver sword. He needed to have this weapon properly maintained, or it would become a problem. Then someone approached him. Hey kid, looks like business has been going well for you lately, just as always. Yakido recalled who he was. You're the guy from that battle against the hopping Grim Reaper, aren't you? The man smiled brightly and waved. The man confirmed it. That's right. I'm still using the equipment you generously gave me that day. Nami's eyes lit up. Did you do that to perform a good deed? Yakido denied it. No, it was simply an emergency measure at the time. He asked about the man's class advancement. How has your class advancement been going lately? The man raised his hammer proudly. You asked at the right time. I just changed classes to become a blacksmith. I had already reached the absolute limit of being a vanguard warrior. Yakido understood. That made sense. Adventurers did not only have combat-oriented classes. The man asked, if you need it, I can take care of maintaining all your weapons and equipment. Yakido immediately agreed. Then after this dungeon run, I'll definitely come by your place. The blacksmith grinned. Really? If you do come by, I promise I'll give you a special discounted rate. After all, you're the benefactor who once saved my life. Yakido smiled softly at the chance reunion. If he had truly helped someone take their first steady steps into an entirely new life, then all the effort he had put into freeing the Class Change Temple that day had truly been worthwhile. The scene shifted to a church where they had arrived. A nun prayed, "May you always be guided forth by glorious light, and may you return to the embrace of sacred light." The teleportation array activated. The two of them teleported elsewhere. The dungeon gate opened. Outside lay a vast desert. Yakido asked an adventurer, "Sorry, did I keep you waiting long?" It was the party that had fought alongside him in the temple cleansing operation. One of them replied, "Not at all. I only just arrived myself." Yakido bowed humbly. "Please teach me a great deal today." The man was surprised. A person with the title Slayer of Evil Gods doesn't need to bow so formally. Yakido remained humble. "I'm only relying entirely on luck. I don't really have any practical skills or combat techniques." The man continued, "But I don't think our enemies are the kind you can easily defeat with luck alone." Those words surprised Yakido. Once they had registered, they began exploring this desert dungeon. A sound echoed out, and the entire party became alert. A giant scorpion blocked their path. Yakido warned them, "A scorpion-type monster has appeared. Everyone, be careful." He understood that, even if this supreme luck was merely a cheating power he had received by chance, he himself was the one who decided how to use that power. His teammates accelerated, and so did Yakido. He had never retreated before an opponent. Yakido gripped the hilt of his sword tightly and planted his foot firmly on the ground. The scorpion possessed an extremely tough shell. They surrounded it. Yakido was utterly confident, believing that the results of his own choices were the true strength he had forged with his own hands. After dealing with their first obstacle, they reached an oasis in the desert and sat down to rest. Yakido happily enjoyed the atmosphere of being with his party. He could not keep living as an eccentric who was isolated and unable to fit into society. From this moment on, he would actively open his heart and connect with those around him rather than staying only with his family. Then a colossal dragon flew through the sky. It shrieked in his direction. Yakido warned, "Nami, let's move quickly." She replied, "Yes." Nami raised her staff and activated its power, while Yakido sprang from where he stood. He slashed downward from above. He would definitely grow even stronger. A brilliant, razor-sharp sword light cleaved the colossal dragon in two. Blood gushed from its body. Yakido closed in on its lower half. Yakido was certain that surpassing and reaching realms beyond mere luck was the ultimate goal toward which he was striving.